My husband left our 5-year-old and 9-month-old home alone and refuses to explain why. My husband is 43 and I'm 31. We've been married for 7 years and have a 5-year-old and a 9-month-old. My husband left our children alone and he refuses to admit to it or tell me where he was. I'm furious, enraged, and my husband keeps telling me I'm making a big deal about nothing. This just happened this weekend. I am on the board of directors for a local nonprofit organization. I had to attend an event for that organization this past Saturday, and I was gone for most of the day. My husband was supposed to be home with our kids. I texted him a few times and he responded. When I called around midday he didn't respond, but that's not very unusual. Shortly after that, I got a call from my mom. She said my son had just called her and when she asked him what he and his sister were doing, he said they were both watching TV. When she asked where their dad was, he said his dad wasn't there. My mom asked him several other questions and from my son's responses she believed he was telling the truth and that my husband wasn't there and that there was no adult there at all. She said he didn't seem scared to be alone or worries about where his dad was at. He just called her to chat. He has a tablet designed for children, with pre-programmed contacts that he can call. It's only a few people, just family members. I left the event immediately and began texting and calling my husband repeatedly. He didn't respond to my first several attempts. It took him about 10 minutes, I was halfway home at that point, to respond. I was so confused, so worried, really mad, and I asked him where he was. He said he was at home. I told him our son had just told his grandmother that he was home alone with his baby sister watching TV about 15 minutes ago. My husband denied it and I told him I was too upset to talk and drive. When I got home, I checked on the kids right away and they were both fine. I asked my husband again, where was he? He said he was home the entire time. He doesn't know what our son was talking about but he must have just been confused since he had gone to the basement to do some laundry. I ran down to the basement, it was the same load of laundry I'd thrown in the dryer the night before. He didn't do any laundry when I was gone. I asked my husband why my son would be confused about whether his dad was home or not. Where in our home would he have gone and for how long for our son to think his dad wasn't home? That doesn't make sense with a 5-year-old and a 9-month-old. You wouldn't leave them unattended that long. Why was he nowhere to be found and my mom asked my son to go check certain areas of the house. I begged my husband to just admit it, to stop treating me like an idiot and to stop accusing our son of lying. Just tell me the truth, because being lied to right to my face is so incredibly maddening. He insists he was home, but he can't come up with any believable story of where he was at or what he was doing during that time. The way he answers me when I ask him about this and demand truthful answers is so dismissive. When I tell him you left our children alone, he quickly says, no, I didn't, so anyway. He says I'm overreacting and letting our son's imagination drive me crazy. I am convinced he was gone. We don't have a Ring camera, but at least one of our neighbors does. I'm so upset about this that I'm tempted to ask our neighbor for the Ring footage. I had to go out to my car and scream and cry because I got so upset. Of course, I didn't want my kids to see my reaction. I can't put into words how upset I am about the fact that I know he must have really left them alone but have no proof and am being treated like I'm just a paranoid nutcase of a mother/woman by him. Comments. Commenter 1. When my now ex did this, it was drugs. I didn't know about it. He told me months later when I found out that he often left at night and out the kids in the living room together, so if the house burned down at least they'd be together. My youngest was under a year. The oldest was 5. Don't stop asking questions. Reply, this gives me chills. Commenter 2. I haven't seen it anywhere, but will admit I haven't looked super deeply, so I'll add this to you. This is not the first time your husband has left your children alone. Your son's reaction to grandma is proof enough of that. He was calm, completely unbothered by the fact that he and the baby were alone. He would not react like that the first time. Commenter 3. As someone who was constantly left alone with her younger brother at such a young age, you are so right. Update. Last weekend my husband left our 5-year-old and 9-month-old home alone while I was gone and then refused to admit it or provide a plausible explanation. Since then, we had many arguments about it. I've been living in a constant state of anger and frustration. I didn't want to fight about it anymore, but I couldn't help it and I kept bringing it up again and again. I couldn't lay low and pretend to get over it while I waited for him to do it again and catch him in whatever was going on. I also knew that demanding he tell me the truth wasn't going to get me anywhere. Since he'd been refusing to talk and deflecting for days. All it was doing was making me enraged and feel like I was about to have a brain aneurysm. I told him to hand me his phone so I could check his location at the time. He refused. He said he wouldn't do it and that it was a violation of his privacy. He won't be treated that way, and refuses to give in to my delusions. You think I enjoy being in a situation where I have to beg my husband to show me his phone so I can see where he was at? I hate it. I don't want to live that way. I told him it's simple, if he was really at home the entire time, just prove it. Why wouldn't he want to clear this whole thing up? I got so mad that he wouldn't turn over his phone that I told him I was going to the neighbors to get their doorbell footage. At first he was like, fine, go do it. He didn't think I actually would. He knows I don't like to air drama to others, so he probably figured I'd just swallow all of this crap he's been giving me. Luckily, I was totally being driven by anger at this point, so nothing was going to stop me from going to the neighbors. When I actually started to go out the door, he tried to stop me and followed me out the door. I felt pure anger rushing through my veins, nothing else. The neighbor, who I've probably said less than 10 words to in the entire time we've lived here, told me he'd send me the footage. I went home, told my husband that the neighbor didn't have the footage from that day anymore, and told him I just needed to go to the store and cool off. So I put the kids in the car and went and parked somewhere while I waited for the neighbor to send me the footage. I have the neighbor's number now too, and he told me if I need any more footage he will be happy to give it to me. The video shows a blue car that I don't recognize show up and park in our driveway. A blonde woman gets out of the car and goes towards my house. She walks on the outside of our garage toward the gate leading to our backyard. The gate is too far back and out of the way to be seen on the doorbell footage. She and her car was there for 23 minutes. Imagine that, the car leaves right around the time that my husband called me to say he was home and had been home the entire time, as I was rushing home in a panic and calling him on repeat. One of two possibilities as to where they went. She either came in through the side door of the house, which does provide direct access to the basement. Or, and what I think is more likely, is that they were in the backmost area of our yard, which is a gated pool area. Immediately behind our house is a grass lawn, then you step down a few steps and we have a patio, and then there is a fully gated area where the pool is. It's not like you think of when you picture a gated pool. It's a full, 6-foot wood fence all the way around, plus even taller landscaping for added privacy. You can't see into the area at all unless you're inside. I think it's more likely that they were back there because my son said his dad's keys were gone and we keep that gate locked with a key. The pool is closed for winter, but there is one small building back there, sort of like a shed we converted into a changing area, and there is a covered patio with furniture. I'm convinced that's where they were. So technically he was home, but in an area totally removed from the house and where he couldn't see or hear the kids if something happened. I asked him how he could explain this. What were they doing? I obviously don't need him to tell me what they were doing, but for some reason I still had hope that he'd finally be honest. He wasn't contrite. He showed no remorse. He was just like, yeah, she was here, but I obviously never left. Who is she? How long has this been going on? And if he's going to be such a disgusting, despicable excuse of a man, then why couldn't he at least have found any other time and any other lie or excuse other than when he was home alone with our kids? I told him I know this has happened before and I demanded to know how many times he's done this when he's been home alone with the kids. He swears this is the only time, but he still doesn't have the balls to confess to what they were doing. I don't believe him that this was the only time, FYI. I still have so many questions and I still feel like my heart is beating 200 times a minute. My blood pressure is through the roof. I've cried a lot, sobbed, begged for somebody to help me, yelled, screamed, and ordered a bunch of books about divorce and custody. And you know what? The next day after our multiple explosive fights, him putting his hands on me, and me seeing the evidence, he acted like everything was totally normal and like none of that stuff ever happened. I woke up still seething, exhausted, broken, and he's acting like everything is totally normal. He said he was ordering breakfast to be delivered from our favorite breakfast place. He asked if I wanted to go to the store together later and try this new recipe for chili tonight. What? Why would Kay want to do any of these things with you now? Absolutely no acknowledgement of anything he's done or what's transpired between us in the past few days. He deserved an Oscar for how well he was able to act like none of that happened, completely comfortable and non-fazed. I know that it's a waste of my energy, but I just desperately want him to admit the full truth of what he did that day and any other day with this woman. I want to hear it from him. It won't change whatever he's done, but he could at least have the respect and decency to be honest now that he's been caught. That's a ridiculous thought though, right? How foolish of me to expect this man to show decency and honesty now. If he was a decent and honest man, then he wouldn't have had a strange woman over to our house and been out of sight from our kids for 23 minutes. His continued denial and refusal to admit to anything other than the bare minimum, his attitude like I'm somehow being controlling or infringing on his rights by asking for information, that's almost more hurtful than him cheating on me. Comments. Commenter 1. OP, he has not been honest and won't be honest. Even if he is, what would that give you? Could you even believe it? OP, you know what he was doing. You don't need him to spell it out for you. Put yourself and your children first. Reply, at the end of the day, him admitting to what he's done wouldn't really change anything. It certainly won't change anything he's done. It won't make it better. And I probably still wouldn't believe I was getting the full truth. Yet, I can't stop seething over the fact that he's refusing to give me any info. Commenter 2, because he is hoping that if he doesn't admit to it, there is a chance you stay with him. He cheated. He endangered your children. He is selfish. Commenter 3, I'm so sorry you're going through this. Unfortunately, you won't get anything from him. If I were you, I'd channel that anger into a plan to take your kids and leave. He will never say he left his kids in a dangerous situation to cheat on you. You know it's what happened, he knows it's what's happened. And it will continue, make no mistake. Stories number 2, Aita for telling my wife to meet her estranged son's fiancé. So, I, 32M, met my wife Aisha, 38F, 9 years ago on the beach in a country where I got a co-op job at a software development company. I won't lie, I was an overconfident kid who approached her even though she was clearly married and there with friends in a country where things could have gone really wrong. Honestly, she was just so beautiful and had an amazing body, and maybe I was wrong, but I did go for her. I only found out months after things developed between us that the only reason she let them was to use me to escape from her husband. And it made sense because she only let things get physical after she learned I would move back home to Canada once my co-op ended. She came to Canada with me under the pretense of visiting her aunt and pursued the process of seeking asylum due to DV, and she stayed with me because she felt safe. Long story short, we've been married for a while now and we've been talking about kids, and she wants them, I want them, and my parents want them. We were finally about to start trying, except a situation with her son Zuffer, 20M, from her first marriage has come up. She has not seen Zuffer in person since she left and hasn't talked to him in about 5 years. Anyway, he's getting married in August, and even though he hasn't reached out to Aisha at all, his fiancée, a girl named Alina, has and wants to meet her when she visits family in Canada at the end of the month. The idea of meeting Alina has made my wife spiral. She absolutely refuses to even consider the idea of meeting with this girl. She will not go anywhere except work, she won't let me touch her, and she's barely talking. Yesterday, I found Aisha literally holding a framed photo of Zuffer in bed and just crying. I know she has regrets and I know she hates the way that she left his father, but she would have been killed had she stayed with him. I told her again yesterday that it wouldn't hurt to at least meet the girl and I'd go with her if she needed, and she just yelled at me and said I was being an asshole about it and that part of her life is over and she just needs to accept it. Comments. OOP on the culture he and his wife are from. I am Egyptian. So while it may not directly be my culture, it's very close. Same people, same religion, different desert. I understand the nuances well enough. OOP on why his wife stopped contacting her son. I don't know why my wife's son didn't reach out, but I suspect that he thinks she hates him for trying to end things. Pretty much, about 5 years ago, her son Zuffer had a huge argument with his father about her. It led to a fight. Zuffer kept trying to phone my wife after that, but she was on a flight at the time and couldn't answer. He took a lot of pills after that and would have died had his father not found him right away. When my wife phoned back, his father answered in the hospital and blamed her and said that next time he wouldn't save him if my wife kept in contact with him. My wife is still terrified of her ex-husband, so she did stop trying to contact her son. I wouldn't be surprised if her ex said something similar to their son to get him to stop contacting her. But this is his son's fiancée, so it's a loophole, and maybe her son is using it, I don't know, I hope so. Update. My update is a mixed bag, I guess. I didn't want to update, but the truth is I don't have anyone to talk to and just thought this might help. The first is that I let the matter lie at first. I figured that maybe we'd get back to it around the time that my wife's future daughter-in-law Alina actually came to Canada. I mean, there's no point in stressing my wife out about it right now. And that did help. A week ago, we found out that my wife Aisha is pregnant and we are both over the moon about it. I mean, we wanted to start trying but didn't know it already happened. Something I didn't mention in my last post is that my wife feels guilt over me. There is an age gap between us and we got together when I was barely an adult. To me, I don't see anything wrong with it because I initiated things no matter how dangerous that could have turned out for me. I pursued her. To her, though, she feels often that she used me and she used the attraction I had to her to escape, and it was wrong of us to take things farther. But I don't feel that way, and honestly I think she has no reason to feel guilty. When we found out she was pregnant, she told me that for the first time she feels like this was meant to be. It actually made me forget about Alina, and 4 days ago when Aisha and I came home from work, it turns out that she came to visit with her aunt and my mother let them in. I was a bit worried that Aisha was going to panic or have a breakdown, but she was actually really calm and composed, and when Alina called her Ummi, Arabic for mother, she got such a big smile on her face. I know it was genuine too because I don't think that she expected that kind of respect. It turns out that Zuffer sent Alina to give my wife an invite to their wedding, and the only reason he didn't come himself is because he's very busy with work, but that he's planning on coming with her again in August to do wedding shopping. Apparently Zuffer is so busy because he's taking over the family business because his father's had a stroke and all of his other half-siblings are 10 and under, so it's on him. When Alina's aunt left to take her kid somewhere, she had a conversation with my wife about her ex-husband. It turns out that Zuffer really is not treating him well at all, no matter how much his stepmother or aunts or even his half-siblings argue with him. According to Alina, he's the calmest and nicest and sweetest person unless the topic turns to his father, and nobody can convince him to treat him better. Like, she told my wife that he has so much hate for him that he once said that the only reason he hates that the stroke happened is that now he can't kill him. He even threatened once to bar his half-siblings from attending his wedding and the reception because his stepmother tried to get him to do better by his father. My wife had Alina tell her the things that her ex-husband did to Zuffer even though she didn't want to, and I won't say them because I just can't imagine somebody doing that stuff to their own child. Alina asked if my wife could talk to Zuffer because she doesn't want him so filled with hate, even if his father does deserve it for torturing him for his entire life. My wife told Alina that she doesn't feel she can talk to her son on the phone after so long, and when he comes, he'll stay with us and she will talk to him about it then, and that she'll convince him for her. Alina left with her aunt soon after, and it's weird because even though my wife told Alina that when we were alone at night she told me that she's happy that Zuffer's doing that and that his father deserves it. She cried a lot that night and told me she'd be forgiving if it was just her that was hurt by her ex-husband, but that she can't stand that her son had to suffer so much under him and hopes that her ex-husband keeps reaping what he sowed. I admitted that seemed wrong to say, but she told me I'd understand when our son is born, and now I don't know why she's so certain it'll be a boy, but hey. Alina's flight home is today and my wife is the one dropping her off, and in fact they were inseparable for the last few days. My wife spent hours talking with her and just learning about her studies and about her relationship with Zuffer. She loves that girl so much already, except every time before she went to meet her she had a mini panic attack almost. I asked about it, but she just said that it's like she has a daughter and it's a good dream and she's worried she's going to wake up. She even said maybe it would have been better if she had been allowed to move on because she's so afraid of getting hurt again. Comments. OOP on the idea of his wife going to therapy. Unfortunately, she'd probably rather divorce me than go to therapy. From where she's from, the belief is that it's for the deranged and the crazy. My parents are from a very similar country, so I grew up hearing those kind of thoughts as well. OOP on his wife seeing a religious leader for counseling instead of therapy, that could actually work. I have never thought about that before, but that is a genuinely great idea. Thank you so much. Stories number 3. Aita for canceling my family vacation after my wife admitted to inappropriate texting her guy best friend. My wife and I have been married for 3 years and together for 7. My wife also has a childhood guy best friend. I've never really been insecure about it, and he also permanently left our country a few months ago to go to his home country, and he's never coming back. My wife was of course sad about it, and she was also a bit cranky and irritated with me over the past couple of months. However, last week, my wife admitted to inappropriately texting him the past few months. She said she felt really guilty about it, and she even showed me the messages. I didn't find anything sexual, but I saw a lot of, "I miss you so much," messages, which was bordering on some emotional intimacy. I was really angry, but after a couple of hours I did cool down. My wife was apologizing a lot and crying and showing genuine remorse. So I did forgive my wife. But I cancelled the family vacation we were going to go to in a couple of weeks. I told my wife I would instead go on a solo trip. My wife looked really sad about it because she was looking forward to the vacation. But she ultimately accepted it. Aita. Stories number 4. On our anniversary, my 27M wife, 27F, and I were intimate, and she said another man's name during sex. He's a mutual friend. I'm at a loss. How do I navigate this? I'm 27M, in a fight with my wife, 27F, after an incident during intimacy. For context, we're high school sweethearts married for 6 years. We have a child, 3M. We've been through a lot together. I love her deeply. Our marriage is in a rough patch. Our quality time as a couple is struggling. We're in counseling. We're working on making time for each other and reaffirming our bond. That's our current focus in counseling, and we're assigned intimacy exercises. Part of these exercises is for us to make a consistent, conscious effort for each other. We had a staycation to celebrate our anniversary while our son spent the weekend at his grandparents'. The trip was largely nice, and we got to better focus on each other, but it took a turn. The night of our anniversary we were cuddling, and it turned into more. My wife initiated. She was really into it and expressive, and then out of nowhere she moaned another man's name who's in our friend group. We stopped immediately. There was no mistaking what she said. She looked stunned before recovering and treating it like a texting typo or something. When I questioned why she'd say another guy's name, let alone one of our friends, she swore it meant nothing and that she was just consumed with what I was doing to her. I couldn't buy it. I don't believe it meant nothing. Not the passionate way she said it. I believe she was fantasizing about him while being with me. She insisted it wasn't like that and was only a slip of the tongue. I asked why his name in particular. First she didn't know, then said maybe because she was replying to his texts earlier in the group chat. When I pushed back, she got defensive. She said I was making something out of nothing and how it didn't need to ruin our anniversary. I told her nothing she was saying was reaching me, and I needed some time. She tried kissing me and initiating again like nothing happened, but I turned her down. The incident put a damper on the rest of the trip. We haven't been intimate since, and any steps we've made forward with our exercises have taken a significant leap back. We're in a cycle of awkward silence even in front of our son or her ignoring the elephant in the room. She's being extra affectionate now, but I can't shake what happened. I never thought twice about their friendship, but now I'm seeing past interactions differently. I love my wife. She and our son mean the world to me. I've been committed to working on our marriage, but I'm at a loss here. I feel my wife isn't being honest and is attempting to rug sweep by pouring on affection. I'm left reconsidering everything. I don't know how to navigate forward. I need outside perspectives. TLDR, on our anniversary, my wife and I were intimate, and she moaned another man's name during sex. The guys in our friend group. She downplayed it and said I was making something out of nothing. Now she's being extra affectionate. I don't believe she's being honest. I'm left reconsidering everything. How do I navigate this? Update. Thanks to everyone who reached out. I, 27M, couldn't reply to everything, but the outside perspectives helped. A general consensus was that my wife, 27F, and I's issue should be tackled in therapy. I knew that's what I should have done, but I delayed. I was too embarrassed. The thought of bringing up what happened in counseling made it worse, but I knew it needed to be done. My wife didn't initially take kindly to it. She was defensive and accused me of throwing her under the bus. I disagreed. I wouldn't throw her under the bus either. The truth is, we never arranged topics in therapy beforehand. We argued over each other. Our therapist came through as a referee. She called for a timeout for us to recollect and to reflect on the objective being working towards a solution, not going at each other. We were able to actually talk once things cooled down. My wife was asked how she would feel if the roles were reversed. She admitted if I had said another woman's name while we were having sex and on our anniversary, she wouldn't have handled it well at all. She apologized for downplaying my feelings. While I appreciated her acknowledgement, I still thought she wasn't honest about why she said that guy's name. So I pressed. She said she didn't want to hurt me more than she already did. I told her she was hurting me by lying. She confessed that during a stint where we weren't having sex, she had engaged in fantasies to satisfy herself. One of them was of our friend. I knew the stint she was talking about. Intimacy as a whole has been a struggle, but there was a point where we were abstinent sexually. We weren't even sharing a bed at the time. We'd argue, then leave to separate rooms, or our son, 3M, would share the bed with us. I asked how long she's been fantasizing about him. She said off and on. He wasn't a constant fantasy. It wasn't necessarily about him but more about the taboo. She swore that the fantasies meant nothing. That they were just scenarios to get her there and nothing she would ever actually want. It was tough, but I tried hearing her out instead of shutting down. Arguing wasn't getting us anywhere either. I can't relate to her about this. She's always been enough for me during good and bad times. I was always focused on her during intimacy. I told her that while I knew our marriage wasn't perfect, I thought we were getting to a better place, and we were engaging in various forms of intimacy again. She claimed she doesn't indulge the fantasies anymore. I called bull because she did just that on our anniversary of all days. She insisted his name was only a slip of the tongue because she was replying to his texts in the group thread that day. She said she was consumed with what I was doing to her, and in the heat of the moment, his name slipped out. When I asked why she didn't tell me all of this after the incident, she said she felt guilty and afraid for our marriage. She said our marriage was already in a state of recovery, and she didn't want to blow everything up over a stupid mistake. She kept saying she doesn't want him or anyone else, she only wants to be with me, and that's the whole reason why she's fighting for our marriage. The session was a lot. I was mostly quiet after she finished. She asked me to please say something, but all I could say was I needed some time. I'm still sorting through how I feel. I believe she was more truthful, but it's difficult, nor do I see things between her and our friend the same. I would like to work on my marriage. My wife and our son mean the world to me. I want the best solution for everyone involved. Thank you again to everyone. I appreciate the support. TLDR Update 4, on our anniversary, my wife and I were intimate, and she moaned another man's name during sex. The guys in our friend group. She downplayed it and said I was making something out of nothing. Now she's being extra affectionate. I don't believe she's being honest. I'm left reconsidering everything. Stories number 5. I made him move out. 6 years in November. 6 We are both 32. We tried counseling for years, both individual and couples. I broke up with him summer of 2023 and he begged for me back that fall and I took him back on the condition we were engaged by October 31st, 24. October 31st came and went. So I asked him to move out. I won't lie, it wasn't easy. But in the 2 months he has been gone I took in a teenager in need, opened my own firm, and started finishing some of the remodel projects that I've had half done for years. I very quickly realized that all the house chores he was claiming to be doing all the time while I was at work really take me 15 minutes after work every night. He was dead weight. I have never been happier. I will admit that I tried dating but it wasn't for me. Everyone wanted to get real serious real quick and I won't be ready for a while. If you're looking for a sign, this is it. I kept putting deadlines in my head and finding excuses to extend them. I'm here to tell you, there really are plenty of fish in the sea. Edit, thank you all so much for the love and support. I am so grateful for this community giving me so much love and strength over the last several years. I could not have done without you. Stories number 6. Aita for thinking of leaving my boyfriend because his behavior has gotten worse after the birth of our daughter. I'm using a throwaway for this because my boyfriend sometimes uses Reddit and I think he may know my main account and I don't want him finding this out. We 22F and 27M have a 2-month-old daughter. She is super colicky, she hates being put down, she cries so much. Her pediatrician says she's just a miserable baby and she will eventually grow out of it. My boyfriend wasn't the most supportive during my pregnancy but now that our daughter has all of these problems, he's gotten so much worse. He complains that we don't have sex enough, he complains she cries too much, he complains that he works too much and I'm a mooch for not having found a job yet. He often leaves me to manage everything while he plays video games or hangs out with friends. It's okay for him to go out and get drunk and stay the night at a friend's house but he will literally time me when I'm taking a shower and blame me for the fact our water bill is too high. He makes me feel like I'm a failure of a mother because our daughter spits up so much we go through 4/5 outfit changes a day and he complains that it's too much laundry. Some bill is late or behind and he blames me for not contributing to our shared bills even though he promised to take care of us both. My boyfriend won't let us use any type of government assistance because he thinks that's beneath us. But we are constantly counting pennies and I have to go without so we can get the special formula my daughter needs so she absolutely miserable all the time. We got into a fight yesterday because I placed a Walmart delivery for diapers, wipes, rash cream and I bought myself some Chef Boyardee cans so I can have something to eat while he's at work. He ended up screaming at me yesterday while our daughter was crying and threw a freshly made bottle at my head, giving me a bruise on my forehead. I just started crying because I felt so defeated. I called my mom while he was at work today and just broke down. She said he's just struggling to adjust to fatherhood, and this is what I get for having a baby out of wedlock. She said she struggled hard when I was a child and this is my punishment for not going to college and being a dumb SL%T. I get it some days because she was a single mom too but I remember being primarily raised by my grandparents and she's never even watched my baby. She doesn't want to because of her medical issues and has told me so. I told my mom I wanted to leave him and she laughed and said I was being dumb and that he's all I've got now and she won't help me. This is after me begging her to lend me some money so I can buy my own groceries and I promised I'd pay her back once I find a job anymore. Sometimes I feel like I am just not cut out to be a parent. I don't feel like a good parent. My mom makes me feel even worse about it and has told me I need to give my daughter to a better family and when my boyfriend is angry, he's told me he wished he had just left us so he wouldn't have to deal with us any longer. I think I need to leave my boyfriend but I'm also scared to do that. Am I being dumb about wanting to leave him? Is my mom right? I don't want my daughter to grow up without her father but he stresses me out so much now I don't even want to be around him because of his behavior. Edit. My grandparents are dead otherwise I would leave him and go live with them that I called the domestic violence hotline and they are going to put me in touch with shelters. I have $7 to my name and I put our important documents in the diaper bag. Please stop messaging me telling me I'm a dummy or I should have aborted my baby. I can't turn back time now that she's here. I regret who her father is but I don't want to give her up. I want to leave him and I'm doing my best to get that in motion. I'm going to leave as soon as I can once a shelter has a place for us both. Edit 2. There is a domestic violence shelter but they won't have a space for us until next Monday. The shelter is going to put me and my daughter up in a hotel starting on Friday. I'm going to get a protective order against my boyfriend and try to get as many of our things out of this apartment until then. I've taken photos of the bruise he gave me. Going to be doing a lot of packing while he's at work tomorrow and Friday. I'm going to apply for as many social services as I can too and I hope I get approved for them fast. I'm slowly getting a plan together to fully leave him. I will update everyone again once we are in the hotel or in the shelter on Monday. Thank you to everyone who's offered help, a place for us to stay, offered food and clothing and stuff I may need once I'm in the shelter and back on my feet. I know I will be better off once I leave him so I just have to keep going until then. Comments. Commenter 1. NTA but you need to leave now. Go on government assistance, name him as the father so the government can get some of its money back and find somewhere else to live. Commenter 2. Government assistance is a safety net that is created for people in your situation. And anyone that has a child no longer has the right to put their pride ahead of proper care and feeding and safe housing of that child. Take the help, for your baby if nothing else. Commenter 3. He already is throwing stuff at OP. How long until he start throwing stuff at their baby? Terrible twos are gonna piss him off and he's gonna throw a bigger tantrum than the baby ever had. He's a danger and can't control himself. It's giving narcissist man-child vibes. Commenter 4. Threw a freshly made bottle at my head. Leave ETA, shaken baby syndrome is nothing to take lightly. You might get a bruised forehead from a flash of anger. Your baby could have so much more damage. Update. I know a lot of you wanted an update when I got one. I'm writing this post while he's at work. I'm so tired and scared. I was up at 3 a.m. and again at 5 a.m. with my daughter and trying to ignore him. I haven't spoken to my mom about leaving him because I'm too worried she might tell him my plan. I'm just going to cut her out entirely because she isn't safe and I'm too scared and worried she's going to take his side and try to make me stay with him when I don't want to. I've never been able to really trust my mom at all but I know I can't trust her with this. The shelter won't have a space for us until Monday. I've packed away all of our important documents like our birth certificates and social security cards. The shelter can't get us placed in a hotel over the weekend and I don't want to risk him finding out when he's off work so I just have to make it through the weekend to get away from him. I'm hoping the shelter will be able to help me get any assistance I can apply for. I've never had to do it before so I'm kind of clueless on how it works. I'm hoping I can also get a protective order against him and he can't have our daughter alone until she grows out of her colic and he won't be so frustrated or angry at her when she cries. I'm terrified to leave her alone with him but I don't know if I'll have to let him see her once we leave. I'm going to continue stashing away our important items until he gets home and I'm honestly hoping he just goes out to drink and stays away so I can have one night of peace. Besides waking up every 2 to 3 hours for my daughter, I can't wait to take a shower as long as I want and eat a hot meal that isn't from a can. I'm hoping the shelter will be able to give me clothes that actually fit. I can't wait to when I don't have to wake up with anxiety in my stomach or worrying about spending money, when I get a job and have my own income, or getting yelled at for buying necessities that I need and my daughter needs. I will update everyone again once we are in the shelter on Monday. Thank you to everyone who's offered help and advice, a place for us to stay, offered food and clothing and stuff I may need once I'm in the shelter and back on my feet. I feel like I'm going to throw up the more I think about leaving but I know I need to do it. Edit. Some of you really need to learn how to be empathetic. No, I will not send you nudes to make money. No, you weirdos, I will not send you feet pics or pics of my daughter. I have people in my inbox asking if I will make a GoFundMe and right now I don't know. Too afraid of my daughter's father finding out. I do have my own bank account that he's never had access to. I have people in my inbox telling me to get a job. I'm hoping the shelter can help with that and get me a job fast, or just being downright mean and rude and saying really awful things. Yes, I know it was dumb of me to get pregnant at 21 and have a baby with a guy I'm not married to but I am going to leave him and give my daughter a better life than the one I had. She deserves that and I don't deserve to be treated the way her father has treated me for her short life. Comments. Commenter 1. Good. We can wait to see that you make it out safe. Let us know up to team. Commenter 2. You're doing the right thing. Stay strong and we'll be here to support you when you're safe. You deserve a better life for you and your daughter. Stories number 7. I regret my marriage and hate being a mom. I need to say this because it feels so heavy on me. I've been hating everyone and feeling irritated, even when my neighbors talk to me. I try to be nice, but it's hard. I'm 32F, my husband is 37 and we have twin sons 8 years and a daughter 3 years. When I look at myself in the mirror, I feel so ugly. I'm not even fat. I work out regularly and take beauty supplements and herbal teas. I also get monthly hair care, facials, manicures, and pedicures, but none of it helps me feel better. It feels like I'm trying so hard but still look bad and ugly. I used to be a model from 14 to 22 years before I got married at 23 and had kids. When I see beautiful models in magazines or online, especially childless ones thriving in their careers, I feel so jealous. Sometimes, I regret getting married and wonder how different my life would have been if I hadn't. I even look at my old modeling photos in magazines, which I keep in my closet, and feel like a loser now. My kids stress me out so much. The twins are so naughty and never listen to me, only to their dad because he's stricter. On weekends, when I ask them to be quiet so I can nap, they'll come into the room, play loudly with their toys, or turn the TV volume up. They'll eat snacks but throw the wrappers on the floor, making the house look dirty and making me so annoyed. I like it when they're at school. My 3 years is so clingy. She won't even poop without me there and won't let her dad help her with anything, or bathing. When I send her to daycare, she bites other kids or pulls their hair, even though she doesn't act like that at home. I always get calls from the daycare staff about her behavior. I have to clean the house and cooks food for them as I want them to eat healthy, and my husband constantly wants sex. When I say no, he gets angry and says it's my duty to take care of his needs as he work hard. The other day, he forced to have sex and when I said no, I don't want to do, he started accusing me of cheating, saying I'm tired of him because I want another man. We had an argument, and he even threatened me if I ever cheated on him. At night, he's always touchy, trying to put his hands under my nightdress, and it's so annoying. I told him I wanted to stay with my parents for a week to get some space from him and the kids, but he got angry and said no. When I tried to force him, he got even angrier and told me to shut up and not piss him off more. I feel so suffocated. The kids are always crying or fighting over toothbrush colors or water bottles and every other small things. My 3 years is constantly clinging to me and wants my attention all the time. I'm so tired. I've tried drinking herbal teas to relax, but nothing helps. I know people might judge me for feeling this way, but I just feel so lost and heavy. What can I do to feel better? I'm just hating them right now. Relevant comments. Commenter 1. Many people are commenting about all the issues OP listed, but I'm not seeing much about the fear I have for the children and whether she's abusing them because she's so resentful of them. She definitely needs to leave the situation right now, and think about what the children are hearing and seeing from both the parents. What a sad clusterfuck. Reply, I'm really tired and frustrated, but I don't abuse my kids. I try to listen to them, I don't shout at them, and I use gentle parenting, but they listen more to their dad because he's stricter. I do everything for them, but when I can't handle it anymore, I go to the guest bedroom for a break, though they still come in. Can OOP reach to her family for support and help with the children? Reply, I only have an older brother, but he's a single dad with his own kids, so I can't ask him for help. I also can't ask his girlfriend. My mom is old and not healthy enough to handle the twins, who are always loud and playing, or my 3 years, who cries whenever I'm not around. It's really hard managing everything alone. I asked my husband if we could hire a babysitter for weekends, but he said no. He told me, you're home all day, you can take care of our own kids, and he doesn't want anyone else in the house. Commenter 2, forcing her to have sex is demoralizing, it's not right. She longs for her old life because she is being used and not appreciated, how he talks to her. That's not okay. It causes an unhappy family, it's cruel. I could not live like that either. Reply, I feel like I'm losing myself in this situation. I miss my old life, and it's hard when I don't feel appreciated. He thinks being a som is easy and that I shouldn't complain because he works harder. The way he talks to me sometimes makes me feel even worse. It always makes me feels like he only cares about his own needs and doesn't understand mine. Commenter 3, I'm sorry he SA'd you said no and just because he's your husband doesn't mean you have to have sex. I completely understand why you feel the way you do. You have no support and your husband's an ass sorry not sorry. He's turning into an abuser. If you're not careful he'll start abusing you or your kids. You need space away from him. Take the kids to your mom's. You're an adult, you don't need his permission and stay somewhere else for a while until you can see what the real issue is coming from a mother. Reply, he rarely helps with the kids. Because he's a bit stricter, they listen to him. Though he never abuses the kids now, I can't just do what I want. He has anger issues, and I don't want to start a fight. Commenter 4, why would someone settle down and get married and have a litter of kids if they hate them all? I just don't understand. Maybe you should hire a babysitter 1 or 2 days per week so you can get away and do your own thing. Your problems sound pretty normal to me. Reply, I didn't expect to feel this way when I got married and had kids. At first, I was happy and loved my kids. Life doesn't always turn out the way we imagine, and it's been harder for me to handle than I thought. I asked him on hiring a babysitter for the weekend while I managed during the week, but my husband got mad and said that since I stay at home, I should take care of our own kids. He also said he doesn't want a stranger in the house. Update. I don't know how, but someone shared my post online, and my husband saw it on FB. He saw everything related to us and immediately asked if I had written and posted it. I tried to deny it, but he didn't believe me. He got really angry, accusing me of being overdramatic and seeking attention from strangers. He shouted, asking if I was happy now that people were calling him abusive and telling me to divorce him. He even accused me of liking attention from men and demanded to know how many desperate nice guy DMs I had gotten. When I tried to explain myself and stop him, he got even angrier. He broke my phone, iPad, and Mac. Things got much worse from there, but I can't bring myself to share the details, it's too overwhelming and graphic. That night, after everything, he locked me in the guest bedroom. I couldn't sleep. The next morning, he apologized while applying arnica cream on my bruises and said we could work things out, even try therapy, and promised to control his anger. He said he will come home early from work so we could spend time together. The twins didn't have school since it was Saturday. When he left for work, I took the kids, got a taxi, and went to my parents' house, which is 2.5 hours away. When I arrived, I told my parents everything. My mom, who isn't in the best health, broke down crying. My dad was furious. He scolded me for not telling them sooner and called me an idiot for staying in that situation. My dad called my husband, and they had a huge argument on the phone. I didn't know my mom had also called my husband's parents. They showed up at my parents' house that same day, and my husband came shortly after. My brother also arrived during all of this. Things got much worse. My dad and brother were ready to fight my husband, but my in-laws and mom stopped them. My dad told me to report him to the police, but my in-laws begged me not to, saying it would ruin the kid's future if he got arrested. They told me to forgive him and to go couples therapy, and they even said they will help with the kids. But my dad told me that if I didn't want to report him, I had to divorce him. I've decided to move forward with the divorce because I can't stay in this situation anymore. My husband was furious and told me I will regret it and would pay for it. He even tried to take the twins, but my dad stopped him. Before leaving, he accused me of doing this because of another man and kicked a vase near the door before he walked out. His parents apologized to me and my parents before leaving. I didn't sleep that night. It's now 6 p.m., and I'm still at my parents' house with my kids. The twins are downstairs with my parents, and my dad is trying to teach them discipline since they don't listen to me. My youngest, Isabella, is sleeping beside me as I write this from my old room, using my dad's old iPhone because I feel so drained. My dad said he would handle the divorce process because I don't have the energy to deal with it right now. I have told my friends what happened, and they're coming to see me tomorrow. This will be my last update. For those who have been DMing me, asking for updates or how I'm doing, I feel better now that I'm at my parents' house. I'll be deleting this account soon so I can focus on moving on. I've also received some hateful DMs calling me a bad wife and mom, saying I mistreat my kids, and even telling me I shouldn't have had children or that I'm narcissistic and entitled. One person even told me to unalive myself. I just want to say this, I wasn't always like this. When the twins were little, things were fine. I was happy, and I loved them deeply. But after my second child was born and as the twins grew older, things changed. My husband constantly accused me of cheating, even if I was just talking to another man. I wasn't allowed to meet my friends, and I had to handle all the cooking, cleaning, and chores alone while still being expected to work out daily to look good. Over time, I started feeling jealous of the models I saw in magazines and missing the time when I used to model. It made me feel even worse about myself, and I started hating my life and my family. As the divorce moves forward, I plan to start therapy and take parenting classes as many of you suggested. Thank you to those who has been kind to me. I didn't know where to vent or let it out in my last post and just did it here in Reddit. Relevant comments. Commenter 1. I hope you do speak to police because it will be very important when it comes to custody that you have a record of abuse. I wouldn't expect the police to actually do anything, but it will be part of your court fillings. At least take pictures of your bruises and any damage you can. Reply, my brother GF took pictures of the bruises on my face, neck, and arm. I don't have pictures of the damage to my things at home, and I won't be going back there. I'm still at my parents' house and will be staying here until the divorce, therapy, and I find a job. My parents are stable, so my dad will help pay for the lawyer. Commenter 2, I personally would press charges but she said she doesn't want to some whatever dumb fucking reason. I say make the fuck pay. Legal fees, child support, jail time, restitution fuck him. Reply, reading all your responses, I think I'll press charges on him and seek custody of all 3 of my kids. I know I said I regret being a mom, and it's difficult for me to take care of them all on my own, but my mom has said she will help. I don't want any of his money, I just want to be far away from him. My parents are stable, and I'll try to find a job and take care of them without taking any money from him. Commenter 3, he thinks he owns you, he will use the children to hurt you more. Filing a report will make it more likely you get custody. Abusive men are extremely dangerous when they have lost control over you. They begin stalking, obsessing, scheming. Change your passwords, cancel your cards, turn off location, limit your posts, go offline, protect yourself and your kids. Hug your dad and thank him too. Reply, I don't have my personal phone right now since he broke all my things during the argument on Friday night. I'm using my dad's old phone, and he doesn't know this number. I won't let him meet the kids. The kids and I are going to continue living with my parents, they have plenty of extra room, so we'll be staying here. My dad has been really supportive, and I'm truly grateful to him. Editor's note, marking this inconclusive because OOP now has deleted the account and we will not know any further updates. Stories number 8. Aita for refusing to change my wedding date because of my sister's pregnancy. My fiancé, 28M, and I, 27F, have been planning our wedding for over a year. We booked our venue, sent out save the dates, and everything has been set for months. The wedding is scheduled for late September. A few weeks ago, my older sister, 30F, announced that she's pregnant, great news. However, she then revealed that her due date is mid-September. At first, I was just excited for her, but then she pulled me aside and said she expected me to move the wedding because she probably won't be able to attend if she's giving birth around the same time. I told her I was sorry, but that just isn't possible. We've already put down non-refundable deposits, and our guests have started making travel plans. She got upset, saying I was being selfish and that family should come first. My mom is now on her side, saying I should be more understanding and at least consider rescheduling so my sister can be there. My fiancé and his family think this is ridiculous, and my friends agree it's unfair to ask me to change everything. But now I'm feeling guilty, should I have at least tried to find another date? Aita for refusing to move my wedding date. Stories number 9. Thinking about not attending my brother's wedding because of his fiancé's prank on my husband. I am 25F, my husband is 30M. My brother 32M and his fiancé 31F recently came to visit us in our city. My partner and I are new homeowners and they were staying with us for the first time. My brother's fiancé loves Halloween. She is also a Disney adult and has a childlike side to her which comes out sometimes. She's just super involved, absorbed, when it comes to her interests. Anyway, I'm just sharing this for context because my perspective is that she often gets carried away and I genuinely feel what I am going to describe was the result of one of those moments where she just took it too far and suffered some negative consequences. She is, however, taking it as a very personal attack. So we disagree and the disagreement resulted in my husband cutting their visit short, aka they were asked to leave. 31F has made comments more than few times now since meeting him that my husband gives off a dark vibe. She is always comparing him to characters from various books she reads. It's not necessarily criticism, she always explains that they are compliments. Well, I'm not sure anymore. Her reasons for these comparisons are based on his looks, the general vibe he gives off and his tattoo. He only has one, but it's on his hand. During this recent visit, she mentioned she would love to see someone like him get scared because she can't imagine him getting startled, or letting out a scream. Scaring him became her goal during her stay with us. None of us knew about it, not even my brother. The incident causing all the trouble is that she tried to jump scare my husband in the garage. It was dark and she ambushed him in the garage while wearing a full outfit and mask when he was returning from a run. Well, he didn't let out the scream she wanted. He instinctively reacted by shoving her against the wall. She hit her head and was quite shaken up. Luckily, he realized very quickly by the sound she made that it likely wasn't an intruder. He switched the lights on and pulled her mask off. He told me he was very confused in the moment. Why would she attack him? My husband helped her inside, apologized, made her tea and then called me. I was out with my brother. When we got home I asked 31F if she was okay and I said her prank was stupid to do because she could have gotten seriously hurt. I don't know if it was what I said that bothered her or if she was just waiting for her partner to come home, but she launched into crying about how my husband used an excessive amount of force knowing it was most likely her just doing a harmless prank. In a nutshell, My husband asked her straightforwardly, "Are you implying I intentionally assaulted you?" She hesitated but chose to say, "Yes," and my husband responded to that with, "Get out of my house." I tried to smooth it but my husband was adamant if that's what she genuinely believes, she's not welcome to stay. 31F chose to stick to her accusation. I decided to side with my husband. My brother is angry with me, he thinks I should have tried to do damage control and let them stay by convincing my husband to lean more into apologizing and placating his fiancée who was just recovering from the situation. He thinks this whole thing would have blown over if I'd helped my husband fold. I find this unfair. My brother was counting on me to handle all this yet he didn't speak up during the conversation or try to talk sense into his fiancée. My husband remained calm the entire time, but he obviously felt insulted by her remarks and I think that's valid. Why should I have taken my brother's fiancée's side over my own husband, especially when I feel like she was wrong for doing all that, then turning around and accusing my husband of wanting to hurt her? My brother says I was short-sighted and should think of their upcoming wedding, but I think he is the one who needs to get his fiancée to apologize to my husband. Editing to add the text below, in an attempt to answer some things that are getting lost in comments. I would like to clarify, when I meant I tried to smooth the situation, I was not taking 31F's side or doubting my husband in any way, I simply tried to get everyone to consider tabling this until emotions had cooled down, and by those emotions, I mean the hysterics of my brother's fiancée. My husband was calm throughout, although there was an obvious finality about his decision. He made his statement and disengaged. As mentioned, my brother looked to me hoping I'd persuade my husband, but I didn't, so they had to leave. The costume. I mentioned in a comment that I didn't get an opportunity to ask that night if she bought an outfit specifically for this prank or if it was my brother's Halloween costume. They go to adult Halloween parties, and we're attending one this weekend 2 hours from where we live. It was part of my brother's costume, a mask, like a golden masquerade one but more coverage. It reminded me of the gold-jeweled animal masks from Squid Game, or something you'd wear to a Rothschild party in the 70s, and she had on a long robe/cloak with a hood. People asked me to update, I will do that. Please look at my comments too in case I already answered a question you might have, but I think these two were the ones I saw pop up the most. I'm sorry I can't keep up with all the comments, I really tried. I will be showing this thread to my brother. Sum of comments. Commenter, info, what did your brother say when you explained how he should have leaned into having his future wife apologize because the whole thing would have blown over if he'd help her fold? Reply, he kept sticking to her, being in shock, and having the right to be upset because she got hurt slammed against the wall. So instead of having a meaningful response he kept downplaying her behavior and making excuses for her. He is saying he didn't want to invalidate her in that moment and that's why he stayed silent, and he feels that as a woman I should have spoken up to convince my husband to take full blame, try to make it up to her. I guess I'm learning a lot about my brother's relationship dynamic. Commenter, she seems inappropriately fixated on OP's husband. Why was she even pranking him to begin with? Do they normally have a jokey banter? This is just so bizarre and I don't understand her thought process. Reply, I don't understand either. My husband has no banter with her. They don't have much of a rapport. All her impressions about him are just superficial ones she's made. She doesn't even know him, but she's the type of person who believes she is really good at reading people and convinces herself she's figured them out and what kind of person they are. She has tried guessing things about him in the past and she gets them wrong because she is basing him off her assumptions. I am sure she does this with other people she meets too. Could it be racially motivated? I don't think her behavior is racial, from my knowledge. She doesn't see him as a Disney villain but rather, like a dark type of character from books and TV shows and stuff. I shared her being a fan of Disney because I was trying to express that she gets really carried away by her interests and I think she loses sight of important things because she's too focused on whatever template she's referencing. He is just a calm and stoic person who is not very talkative. He is not shy, so I think he comes across as difficult to read and maybe a little intimidating because of that. He is just someone who observes more, isn't overly chatty, and she doesn't even know him. She just fills the gaps in her knowledge about him with assumptions of who she thinks he is because she thinks she's good at reading people and figuring them out. She's not and has assumed wrong things about me too, but this is something she boasts as a skill of hers. I said it in another comment too. She makes confident guesses about my husband, but often gets it wrong. Dark. Oh wow. I'm learning via comments what dark actually means, and I don't get it, because my husband is not a mean person at all. I wouldn't even say he is brooding. He is just straightforward, calm and controlled and not a yapper like myself and the rest of my family, and her. Unapproachable I can understand a little because of his stature / being more of the silent type tends to make someone feel that way from a distance. But he has the warmest smile to bridge that. Sorry to hijack your comment, I know what you were saying. I honestly want to read some of these books now, just to try and see what she sees of my husband in all this. Because I don't see that. Update post. I got a lot of messages requesting an update. I have never made one before, so I hope I am going about this correctly. Editor's note. I tried to talk to my brother multiple times after the incident, but each attempt ended in silence because I refused to give in to his demands. He wanted my husband and me to apologize to his fiancée, starting with me downplaying the whole situation so she wouldn't feel bad about her prank. I hesitated to send him the Reddit post I'd made. Initially, I thought it might work against us to make things worse. But his total inability to reason with me or see the situation for what it was became beyond frustrating. Since I couldn't physically deliver a cold hard slap to his face for asking me to be complacent in allowing my husband to be falsely accused of assault, I figured the next best thing would be for him to read all your comments. Following the advice I got here, I tried to get ahead of the situation by informing my parents. My dad, a reasonable and practical man, immediately sided with my husband. His comments were similar to what a lot of people here had said, focusing on how dangerous and reckless the prank was and the ramifications of being falsely accused of assault. My mom, who unfortunately has always favored my brother, suggested we at least hear her out, referring to my brother's fiancée. As livid as I was about her reaction, I wasn't surprised by it. My dad did try to shut down her skepticism, but she remained on my brother's side for a few days, until I showed them footage from my brother's Tesla, which he had tried to delete. The Sentry thing, sorry if I'm using the terminology incorrectly, I'm not a Tesla owner, recorded part of the interaction in the garage, not the jump scare itself but the aftermath, which IMO was more crucial. My husband's account was confirmed. He used a measured amount of force to immobilize her and was prepared to escalate if necessary, which is beyond generous for someone to do in a situation like that, and definitely not owed. Many of you speculated that she might have a fixation or even a crush on my husband, and I'm starting to reconsider some past interactions with that in mind. I also misunderstood what dark books she expressed she enjoyed, and compared my fiancé to. I learned from comments here that they are actually a subtype of the romance genre. I didn't know she was comparing him to characters in romance novels because one of the characters I recall her comparing my husband to was from a book about dragons. I genuinely wish I still remembered the names of various characters she's mentioned over the months so I could satisfy my own curiosity, but my brain glossed over the names during conversations. We have a group chat for the wedding, which includes my brother, my parents, my brother's fiancée, and her parents. In that chat, I addressed the incident but didn't share the Tesla footage, only mentioned that it exists. Her parents didn't respond in the chat, though I know they saw the message. Later, her mom called mine. Apparently, they had no idea about the prank. It's hard to say whether they believe me or if they've taken their daughter's side after speaking with her. My brother's fiancée, and my brother, have both extended apologies to my husband, and have requested our presence at their upcoming wedding. My parents, trying to keep the peace, have encouraged us to go, saying it's the honorable thing to do. So, for the sake of family formality, we've decided to attend. However, my husband has made it clear that we'll be there out of obligation. We will be keeping a distance from them going forward. We haven't explicitly stated it, but there will be no future invitations to our home, not even for the holiday dinner we had planned before all this happened. My husband is going to minimize all future interaction with my brother's fiancée. I don't think we'll ever trust her again. I'll try to spend some one-on-one time with my brother to gauge where we stand. Our relationship feels strained, and this incident has made me realize that I lost him to her long before this happened, something I hadn't fully recognized until now. Thanks to everyone for sharing your opinions. A reporter from a news outlet reached out to me, and I remember requesting that if anyone uses my story, I would like them to pass on the following sentiment. I hope that if you share my story, you can help highlight the dangers of ambush-style pranks. These types of pranks create a threatening environment and put everyone involved at risk of serious harm or injury. They are stupid and dangerous. No one should have to feel threatened or be put in a position where their safety is compromised for the sake of a prank. If that's the setup, then it's not a prank. Actions like these will always have consequences, some of which may be irreparable, and no prank is worth the risk of someone getting hurt. Editing to add a little footnote. I understand people get curious and invested, but please consider this my final update. If necessary, I will update again in the future, but it will be unlikely and I assure you it won't be anytime soon. I got a lot of DMs requesting updates on the previous post, so I thought I'd place this disclaimer here and another edit to fix the formatting. I wrote this post in my notes app first, which was a dodo move. Apparently sorry, I suck at this. Sum of comments. Commenter. Please make sure to keep a copy of that video and if possible a written statement from your future SIL. She can always backtrack and try to ruin your husband's life with a false accusation. Reply, we have a copy. My husband pulled the footage the night the incident happened while the rest of us were still talking. I didn't mention it in an edit because he was waiting to see if my brother would be willing to show it to us himself and I was going to send the post I made to my brother. When my brother didn't bring it forward, I revealed it. Commenter, how did you get the footage from your brother's Tesla? Reply, he used my brother's phone to unlock it, you just have to bring it near the car, the phone doesn't have to be unlocked or anything. He pulled up the event and recorded a video of it with his phone. I know you didn't ask but I'll just add this next thing too so other people can see more easily since I sometimes can't keep up with answering all the comments. When it came to apologizing my brother refused to be honest and claims he might have accidentally deleted it because he has, apparently a habit of deleting all the footage since it records unnecessarily a lot and he rarely reviews it back. He claims since my husband got in and reviewed it first, the tablet in the car didn't show the notification for him when he turned the car on when they were leaving. He assumed it didn't record an event. Commenter, I think, since they both apologized, you are making the right decision by going to the wedding, but still keeping your distance in the future. Is the video good enough to see the look on her face after the prank went bad? Reply, it started recording when he reacted to her, not before that. I'm guessing because it got triggered by the movement. I don't own a Tesla, but from walking past it myself while my brother was staying with us, I noticed it would record me, you can see the eyeball thing, when I would be grabbing something from my extra freezer, which is in our garage. I wouldn't have to touch the car or anything for this to happen. When the incident happened, my husband said it also flashed its light suddenly which was disorienting. The recording had that ghostly night vision look in the dark, so unfortunately both parties look a bit weird in the footage up until my husband turned the lights on. When my husband shoved her against the wall, she had the mask still on so you can't really see the look on her face. When he pushed it off/turned on the lights, he was obscuring her so no Scooby-Doo unmasking moment caught on camera. Right after that, he backs off and is just exasperated. She is seen fixing and smoothing her hair repeatedly and has one hand on her chest, or heart I guess. I'm sure she was shocked/scared in the moment but she accused him of slammed her knowing who she was and that's not true, the video confirmed he slammed her before that, and just before the Tesla flashed the lights. At no point does she look afraid of him or anything like that. Edit to emphasize, the footage shows he doesn't touch her in any way after unmasking her. Commenter, I thought about it in the first post and I'm thinking about it now, what was her endgame? What did she want as a reaction? Or did she go in with head empty no thoughts energy? OP would be well advised to keep her husband far away from her STBSIL until she starts showing some evidence of keeping fiction separate from reality. Reply, my take as a person who has never read much romance books is that she just wanted to see if she could be the one to startle him. Like maybe she wanted to hear a girly scream escape my otherwise stoic husband who she doesn't really know anything about like not even enough to compare him to some fictional guys. I feel like this by itself would be viewed as an accomplishment by her, if she could claim she is the only one who has gotten such a reaction from him brag about it. It seems juvenile. But she has bragged about similar things. Commenter, out of interest, is your husband objectively conventionally attractive? Reply, maybe not in the chiseled male underwear model who looks too perfect kind of way but he is objectively handsome. He is very tall with dark hair, athletic, and has good bone structure. But he's not flashy or someone who likes to draw attention to himself so I don't know if his personality fits. He isn't brooding or morally gray or domineering. He is reserved. Hard to read. I said it on the other post that maybe his persona can come across intimidating from a distance because he's not very chatty and doesn't yap, but his smile can bridge that easily. He's not menacing. Or macho. Or controlling. Or cocky. I don't think he has any of those super toxic traits which probably add to the tension in those books. Brother, that's definitely my main concern, having an irreversible falling out with my brother because of her. As it stands right now my brother feels so unreachable, even my dad is struggling to connect with him. We're both worried this marriage is a mistake or something is going on with him that makes him feel he has to go through with it. So much so that he's unwilling to talk to us or even pause to reconsider. Commenter, okay, I'm guessing a slightly spicy book with dragons. Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros. The male lead is on the darker side. His name is Zayden Ryerson. I love reading so if anyone has any other ideas, I'd like to hear about it. I can't imagine your brother taking the side of his fiancée pranking your husband, it screams obvious crush, let alone him choosing to marry her. Reply, guys, TYSM for the sleuthing, it's killing me not knowing what references she's made in the past because now I am all of a sudden interested in trying to put myself in her brain. But I don't care if this book character is correct. I read the description and Zayden is brown/tawny skinned. My husband has dark hair and a warm skin tone but he's definitely not brown. But maybe it's not about the looks. I laughed when in the description it says his features are harsh and utterly perfect, as if an artist spent their lifetime carving and sculpting them, yet alone a year on his mouth. Commenter, why does your husband feel obligated to go to the wedding? Reply, he's only going to accompany me so I'm the obligation. He made that known to my brother. I'm going at the request of my parents' grandparents, and if I'm super honest I'm also going because I still hope my brother will come around and open up to me and be honest with me. Because throughout this whole ordeal, he hasn't been, and it just seems to me like something is wrong that he isn't sharing, something that goes beyond this incident. So in my head I'm giving him one final opportunity because the way things are right now, we are headed for no contact after the wedding, and I just know it will be easier for me if I feel like I did everything and have no regrets. New update. I still get the odd message or notification on this account, which is surprising to me. I always feel bad because I can't feed the interest with a truly juicy update. TLDR, my brother and his partner got married, she is pregnant and we are no contact. First post here. First update here. This is the last one from me guys. I did read, or try to read, some of the books I got recommended that would show me what my husband is being compared to. I mostly did this for entertainment purposes. I think some fans of these books will get mad, but I'll just be honest, these books are not for me. I got up to book 3 in a Kotar, A Court of Thorns and Roses, although my skimming increased with each book. I made it through a little bit of the 4th one and that's when my brain just couldn't take any more. I think my husband was supposed to be Reese and after reading 3 plus 1 2-ish books. I don't quite see it. I found both Reese and Fair increasingly annoying as the books went on. I just DNF'd. They're not my people. If I had to pick, Osriel seemed a little more like my husband maybe. Based on just loose vibes that I got. I also read Fourth Wing, just the one book, and I won't be reading the rest of the series. I think my husband was supposed to be Xaden. He's actually more of a Liam personality-wise. These were the main 2 books. Anyway, the actual update. My brother and his fiancée got married. She was pregnant. My mom had already suspected apparently, but the pregnancy was announced during the wedding. The pregnancy has made my parents kind of soften. My mom is distracted about becoming a grandma. It hasn't changed how I feel. I still think it's a mistake that he's marrying her, and I'm worried about him, but I also don't have any intense feelings. It's his life. My husband didn't have to attend the wedding. We all said he could skip it, but he wanted to accompany me. Nothing dramatic happened at the wedding. We did keep at a bit of a distance, so maybe we missed any drama if there was some. I did learn something disturbing from someone who has spent more time with my brother's wife. She had apparently made some disgusting comments about my husband in the past. She had said he looks like a Lezen comics character. It feels nasty to direct quote her, so I will just paraphrase. She basically implied he is so essayable and or would be doing the essay or something. I don't know if any of this has to do with the context of these types of comics. This was all apparently said in a WhatsApp chat, but no proof of the conversation because the person who told me said she got a new phone and didn't back up her WhatsApp. I don't have any reason to believe she would make this up though. I didn't confront my brother's wife about this comment because it was said a long time ago and it just doesn't seem worth bringing up. We have just continued our no contact. Like I said, pretty boring update. But it's truly my final one now that the wedding is over. Sum of comments. Commenter, just in time, no baby showers or obligations for you. You think the baby will have some wild romantasy name? Reply, it's going to be Ryder or something and she's going to be a boy mom, with the apparel to match. Commenter, I read some Lezen comics and I would never thought of acting like her still. She's really FCK up. Reply, no hate to Lezen or any of the books I mentioned. She is very much the problem, not the things she's interested in. Commenter, I'd be surprised if anyone posts to disagree with your decision to go NC. If things ever go south between your brother and that woman, please establish strong ground rules should he ever reach out to reconnect. You may want to discuss those with your husband now, e.g. the woman will not be allowed on your property, even if it is to drop the kids off. You will not attend any events which she will be present at. You may even decline to have contact with his child, Ren, as she may use them to make new false accusations. These will suck if you and your brother do try to rebuild your relationship in the future, but it is entirely the fault of your brother and his dreadful judgment during the original incident, and that woman for being just awful. Reply, we've spoken about this vaguely and informally, but I really appreciate your advice. I think more of a proper discussion is needed and I will have that with my brother at some point. I was waiting for an appropriate time, for the wedding and their honeymoon to be over. I didn't want him to think I was making it about me or get blamed for spoiling the mood, etc. It sucks because I always had a good relationship with my brother and I feel like it's not the same at all anymore. He feels so closed off and difficult to talk to now, but what you said is what I keep reminding myself. He made his call. I need to make mine. I'll always be there for him but not at the cost of my own family, and my dad conveyed similar feelings to him. Commenter, you're wise to do so with your husband, and you're wise to do so at a time that's both at a distance. and not in the immediate aftermath, yet not reactive when you're having to quickly make a plan. However, I would urge you to think twice about having that conversation with your brother now. It may dissuade him from reaching out. He may see it as an aggressive mood. Hey bro. I know that we stopped speaking as a result of the absolute hellhound that you married. Here's some reasons why I'm going to put up further barriers, and most of all, he will tell her and she will find some way of using it against you. These may not be fair. But, trust my brother and his wife not to be dreadful, has not been a successful strategy to date. Reply, yes, absolutely, it will happen more so when the time comes if I have to. You highlighted one of my biggest concerns, her further isolating him from us. And him feeling like we are against him. Making him shut down. It's more important to me to preserve our relationship to an extent where he still feels like we are in his corner should he choose to open up and share what's really going on in his relationship with her and get support from us, which he will have should he ever want it. Commenter, I can't believe you read those books. I remember being 20 years old and thinking they are incredibly badly written. Reply, I got really curious, it's not a genre I read. I think teenage me might have enjoyed them more. The me back when sex and stuff seemed taboo and I'd haul a bunch of books to read at my grandparents' house every summer. To another commenter, it's definitely not for me. I love reading though, and now I do want to read more romance, to find something I like in the genre. My idea of romance is gothic novels, so my search begins. Feel free to share any of your recommendations. If we hate the same stuff, maybe we like the same stuff. Haha, no pressure. Stories number 10. My husband's getting drinks with a coworker and I'm terrified. My husband, 35M, and I, 34F, have been together for 9 years, married for 5. He was showing me a video on his phone the other day and a text came through from a female name I didn't recognize. I asked who it was and he said she's a colleague from a company that his company works closely with. He has text previews turned off so I couldn't actually see what was said, but my suspicions were raised. I know it's wrong, but when he was in the shower that evening I looked through his phone to see who this girl is and why she's texting him. I found out that they've been getting coffee and lunch during the workday, sometimes to talk about work, sometimes not. Prior to last week, it was maybe once a month communications to plan these, but then she joined a board that he's on last week. So they had a board meeting and then seemed to go out as a group for drinks after until about 11. I did know that he was out with his colleagues during this time and wasn't concerned. What is concerning is that he texted her that night making sure she got home safe and telling her how much fun he had, but that he'd been hoping to have more opportunities to talk with her instead of everyone else. The next morning, he texted her good morning and asking her to drinks one-on-one next week. She agreed and he said he couldn't wait. Of course I looked her up and she's a very beautiful woman, probably in her mid-20s. I asked again later who she was and what their connection was. He reiterated that she's a colleague and is helping get him connected with exciting opportunities in her organization. I know he's been really focused on networking and she has a lot of high-up community connections that it looks like she's introduced him to. He's also a friendly guy who likes to be involved, through board work and professional groups. I don't want to go scorched earth and accuse him of anything inappropriate since my insecurity has been a major issue we've had to work through in the past, but I'm terrified he's going to cheat on me. Would this send off alarm bells for you, and how would you respond without accusing him and ruining the marriage? Added comments. Commenter. If nothing else, he has a crush and is sliding straight into emotional affair. Not knowing him, I couldn't say, but straight to physical would be some guy's response if she is reciprocating the interest. Edit to add, I have female friends and I have never texted good morning. Reply. Ugh. It all seemed professional up until last week, but yes, he was the one reaching out to plan things and would occasionally steer the conversation away from work, asking how her day was, if she has any plans, saying they should do something together over the weekend, and she seemed to shut it down. But now after last week, it seems like she's saying yes, and the texts from both of them got much less professional with smiley faces, multiple exclamation points, that sort of thing. How would you recommend handling it? Commenter. Info. Based on the conversations you've seen, is he generally the one initiating contact? Op. He's literally always the one initiating. Update. Well, you were all correct. I continued to monitor his texts without saying anything and he continued to be flirty, texting her good morning, telling her how he couldn't wait to see her, and how happy he was to hear from her throughout the day. They did go out for dinner and drinks the other night. It sounds like it must have gone well, since they're now having flat-out conversations to set the framework for their affair. They've discussed that they want to keep things private and out of work, that she doesn't like that he's married, that they both have mutual feelings and are going to continue and are on the same page about everything, and that she initially didn't want to start this but has developed feelings she can't ignore. While my husband told her that he's always had these feelings and couldn't resist her. Not sure if anything physical happened, but I'm assuming it did. I thought I'd be heartbroken, but now I'm just furious. I'm getting my affairs in order to confront him and end the marriage. Thanks for all the feedback and advice. Stories number 11. Aita for setting my wedding date for a week. My BL doesn't have custody of his kids. My sister got married last year and it's been a shit show of massive proportions. Her husband's divorced and he has 2 kids, 7 and 11, with his ex. His ex is insane and there's a lot of unhappiness in my sister's home. The kids don't like my sister because of their mom's influence. My sister is pregnant, so that's extra exciting. The kids don't like our family because we're related to my sister. They also started hating on their own aunt because she and my sister have become close since they met. The kids are rude and disrespectful to my sister and to us. They throw tantrums and only their dad can make them stop in the moment. Anyone else steps in and they fully ignore them. I don't blame the kids though. Their mom is very clearly behaving poorly. She crashed my sister's wedding and caused a scene and tried to take the kids home with her even though it was his parenting time. A couple of weeks later she was crashing a party at our house and insisting her kids didn't belong there. Then a while after that it was a cousin's birthday party and she stood outside the venue and yelled at us from a distance. The kids wanted to go with her and that became a fight. Stuff also happened before the wedding too, but there's too much to list. BIL took his ex back to court and armed with the proof of her behavior he tried to make her stop or to change custody. But all she got was a warning and no custody change. She continued showing up like that and ruining events or causing a scene. Turns out the kids were telling her about all plans where they were with us and she was showing up because she objects to them spending time with my sister or her extended family. I found out just before Christmas that the ex had run off the woman BIL dated after he and his ex divorced. That her crazy had made the woman nope out. My sister knew and married him anyway. The ex never bothers BIL's family, but she does not want her kids getting close to another woman or becoming part of another family and she's doing her best to stop it. BIL had the kids for Christmas and they invited both families over. The ex showed up again and caused a scene. The police removed her like they've done several times already. BIL and his ex were in court again and the same thing happened as before, a warning. I've been engaged for a few months and my fiancé and I finally set a date last month for our wedding. All she wanted was a summer wedding and what I wanted was a day without BIL's ex crashing, so we chose a week where BIL won't have his kids. We didn't say that when we announced the date, but my sister and BIL noticed and they were annoyed we didn't take his custody schedule into account. We did, just not how they wanted. We said we were sorry and we couldn't change it now but hoped they'd still come. My sister accused me of excluding 2 young members of the family by keeping the date. Aita. Stories number 12. I just found out my sister has been cheating on her husband. My sister has been married to her husband for over 10 years. It seemed all was going well between them, with them traveling the world together, both actively getting involved in the other's hobbies and interested, and the plan to start a family in the very near future. He adores her and we thought she adored him in turn, but then the shit hit the fan yesterday. He found out she's been having an affair with someone at her work, the oldest and biggest fucking cliché. He's understandably heartbroken and angry, and now wants a divorce. I don't blame him for wanting that. My parents, especially father, think he's amazing, and I wholeheartedly think of him as the big brother I never had. Needless to say, we're devastated for him. My parents don't seem mad at her, rather they're disappointed that. I, on the other hand, am more angry than disappointed. For someone who is so thoughtful and meticulous about everything she does, I cannot fathom why she'd do something so stupid and irrational. So my question is, what now? How do I talk to my sister about it? What do I say to her? What can I say to my brother-in-law? I know blood is thicker than water, but how do I show that I support him without completely alienating my sister, who I know will also need support? Stories number 13. AIO, son didn't invite my partner to his wedding. Throwaway account because my son uses Reddit and I don't want him to know my real Reddit username if he sees this. My husband, M57, and I, F46, have been together for 8 years. My children are adults, so there hasn't been a stepdad role to play. He isn't a huge fan of my family and the way they treat me, so I usually go to my family events alone, which is fine with me. My oldest son, M27, is getting married in a few months. When he sent the invitation, I noticed it didn't have my husband's name on it. I gave my son the benefit of the doubt and asked if it was an oversight. He responded saying there was a strict 75-person limit and that my partner didn't make the cut because he felt that he doesn't know my partner well enough. He went on to be very ugly in his messages to me, doubling down on the fact that he didn't want him there. I should add that there have been no negative interactions, just a few neutral ones over the past 8 years. I have had cancer for 6 and am now stage 4. My husband is a gem of a man that has taken care of me for 6 years through thick and thin, surgeries, chemo, radiation, etc. He went to every chemo appointment, and has rehabbed me through more surgeries than anyone should have to in their lifetime. My family, my son and extended family, haven't done anything but watch from afar, though we were in the same town, and offered very little, if any, help during those times. I am furious and not going to the wedding because I feel that it is in very bad form to invite only one half of a couple, especially when half of the couple is the mother of the groom. I also feel like he should have come to me to discuss it before sending the invitation and being so rude. Now my parents aren't speaking to me and neither are my sons. Am I overreacting to the disrespect and lack of empathy shown by my son in my decision to not go to the wedding? Stories number 14. Aita for my response to my boyfriend's ultimatum over audiobooks. My boyfriend and I have been together for around 3 years, and we've had a pretty easygoing relationship, no big fights or anything, until now, which is why I'm questioning myself so much. So I listen to audiobooks, not erotic ones, though I do partake in audio-only porn sometimes, because as becomes important later, I have a thing for nice voices, but somehow someone just reading smut off a page feels weird for me to listen to, no judgment to anyone else of course, just not my thing. My BF has recently gotten a bug up his ass about me listening to them, especially when he's home, even though I always use headphones, and do my best not to disturb him. Also, before anyone says it, my Audible account comes directly out of my own bank account. He has no reason to think it will affect his finances. Anyway, he only ever gave little snide remarks until the latest time, so I let it go. Most recently, I had been making us dinner, and cleaning up behind myself as I did it, and because he was playing video games, and I get bored doing those kinds of things without something else to think about, I turned on my favorite audiobook, and picked up where I had been listening the week before. I didn't realize he was in the kitchen until he jerked the cord on my headphones, and asked if I was doing it again. I asked what he was talking about and he just sighed, and said that he needed to talk to me. We sat down, and I'll admit, I was pretty pissed he had jerked on my headphones, and not super willing to listen to anything right then, another reason I might be an AH. He said that it really bothered him when I listened to audiobooks from a man's perspective, because he knows about my voice thing and that it makes him uncomfortable. I asked why, and he said that he couldn't get it out of his head that I was thinking sexual things about the characters, and that, along with the romantic elements made him really upset and felt almost like I wasn't fully committed to him. I asked if he realized I was listening to a book for teens, written by a literal Mormon, and that none of the books I listened to have smut. He said that it didn't matter, and started getting angry again, which just made me angrier, and he dropped the ultimatum that he wanted me to stop, or else we would need to break up. I was so pissed at this point that I just shrugged and said gladly, the minute you stop watching porn I'll never touch any of it again, which had him pissed, because he claimed he never said anything about porn, only the romantic and sexual parts of the books I listened to. I said that if he was allowed to make ultimatums of favorite pastimes, why can't I? Then I asked if he would rather give up video games since that's closer to what audiobooks mean to me. He ended up just saying to fucking forget it and went to bed, but has been pissed at me since. I talked to my friends about the situation and got mixed answers, so I wanted to try with strangers as well. TLDR, BF wanted me to quit listening to non-sexual audiobooks, because he felt I wasn't fully committed to him, so I asked him to give something else up in return, either porn or video games. Aita comments. He did try to explain that he felt as if I reacted to the romantic parts in ways I don't react to him, which almost made sense, but then all I can think is, yeah. Of course I do, this kind of romantic thing doesn't exist in real life, and I don't expect it to, but to hear about it is enough to make me blush, or laugh, because it's cute. I've never expected him to be an over-the-top romantic. I don't think I would enjoy it in real life, it would more than likely overwhelm me, but I do like to hear about it, I guess. This part does make me feel a little bad, because at the time I was so angry about the headphone pulling. I don't know why it set me off so bad. No one has ever done it to me before, but for some reason it had me pissed. I couldn't even react to it like I should have. I honestly maybe should have asked to wait. The more I think about it. I usually cook for us, he can't cook worth a damn, and I enjoy it, so I do that. He does other chores, though. I hate doing anything in the bathroom, but he doesn't mind, so anything to do with that is his, and he takes care of the garbage and the car. I mostly handle anything in the kitchen and laundry and such. I wish he would do something like that, but he's just not spontaneous, or really romantic. I don't mind it really, most guys aren't, and he's great in other aspects. When it comes to red flags, I didn't think of it in that way, but I can tell you it certainly made my temper spike in a way it hasn't since I was in high school. I do try very hard to show my commitment to him, but there may be some wires crossing in our communication. I'm an acts of service person, more than anything, including words, but maybe I can try something else. If he needs to hear me say the things I'm feeling out loud more often than I do now, then I can do that. I don't mind changing tactics to make him more secure in the relationship if that's what he needs. I don't mean to make him feel insecure. The more I think about my reaction, the more guilty I feel, because at first it was, how dare try to take things away from me, but now it's more, sure. That was a shitty way to bring it up, but it sounds like he's been really bothered and I just got defensive and mean instead of listening to him at all. But then I get mad about the jerking my headphones thing again, I really don't know why, but that shit made my blood boil. It's complicated, and it's hard for me to know what to do. The Midnight Sun audiobook, and I know Twilight. In 2024. But Jake Abel pulls off making Edward both a scary 100-year-old vampire, and an eternally teenaged boy in love, and it's fun. I love it. I don't care if it's bad, I adored the original series when I was younger. And then this one dropped and New Moon stopped being my favorite of the series. Update. So it's been a while. I didn't think I would update, because the original update would have been mostly us talking and working things out, agreeing that whenever he felt insecure, he could tell me, and I could focus my attention on him for a while. It worked really great. Well, until I found out he had been fucking his coworker, that is. I don't have the details, I don't want the details, but he admitted to it in the end, so he did it. That's enough. He wanted to work it out, and apologized, begged for a second chance, but honestly, the idea that he said a word to me about an audiobook about Edward frickin' Cullen while he was getting strange on the side, it killed any opportunity for forgiveness I had inside of me. It was so ridiculous, I laugh thinking about it now, and it's been a month since we broke up. Like, it makes me feel insane. It is so funny. He was yelling at me for listening to a book about Mormon vampires while he was cheating on me. XD, I cannot make this shit up. 100 points to whoever said projection the first time I posted. I can't remember if it was a comment or a message, but you were right. I wish I had a cookie. Thanks for the help anyway, even if the relationship is a bust now, I really do appreciate you all. Stories number 15. Aita 4, humiliating my neighbor's kids by having them help me fix a window they broke. Using a throwaway because I want to. My girlfriend, 25F, and I, 25M, have been dating for about 7 months. I moved into this house around 6 months ago because it was closer to my family and friends than my previous place. It's a little farther from work, but I mostly work from home, so it wasn't a big deal. About a week ago, I was doing dishes in the kitchen when I suddenly heard glass shattering from the garage. When I went to check, I found broken glass all over the floor. One of the windows, not the door, had been broken from the outside. I didn't see anyone, but while cleaning up, I found a football that wasn't mine. I recognized it as one of my neighbors. I had seen their kids playing with it in the front yard before. Later that night, my girlfriend noticed the broken window when she came over for dinner. She doesn't live with me, though I have asked her a few times. I mentioned that one of the neighbor kids must have accidentally broken it while playing football and that I'd return the ball to them the next day. I wasn't angry about it, it was just a window. But my girlfriend seemed annoyed and called the kids rude and disrespectful for not apologizing. The next day, I went out to get supplies since it gets cold where I live, and I wanted the window fixed sooner rather than later. When I got back, I grabbed the ball and knocked on my neighbor's door. The mom answered, and after I explained what happened, she had her 3 boys come and apologize. She also offered to pay for the damage, but I declined. Instead, I asked for one thing, that the boys help me fix the window. I thought it was a good lesson. When I was a kid, I used to ride my bike through an elderly lady's flower garden as a shortcut. One day, she caught me. Instead of punishing me, she asked me to help her replant it. So, I spent a few afternoons after school helping her, and that experience really stuck with me. I figured this was a similar opportunity for these kids. My neighbor agreed, so I showed the boys how to fix the window. At first, it was a little awkward, but they warmed up to it and actually did a great job. About 30 minutes in, my girlfriend pulled into the driveway. She gave me and the boys a weird look but went inside without saying anything. After we finished, I thanked the kids, sent them home, and went inside. My girlfriend immediately asked why I had them help. I told her I thought it was a good way for them to learn from their mistake, just like I had when I was younger. But she said I had humiliated them. I explained that I wasn't trying to shame them, I wasn't angry, didn't make a scene, and even turned down their mom's offer to pay. I just thought it was a good way to teach them responsibility. She still thinks I was in the wrong. I don't think I am, but I also don't want to go around awkwardly asking my neighbor's kids if they felt humiliated. So, Aita, update. Thanks to everyone who commented on my first post. A lot of good questions were brought up, and I talked with my girlfriend over dinner last night. Here's what happened. For context, we are both white. My mom married my stepdad when I was 2, and he's black. I was raised in a predominantly black neighborhood, and the one I live in now is the same way. The 3 boys who helped me fix the window are also black. My girlfriend isn't originally from this state, she moved here for school and, in her own words, just never left. During dinner, I asked her again why she thought I humiliated the kids. After a bit of back and forth, she said something along the lines of, "You look like a slave owner." Hearing that was honestly shocking. That thought had never crossed my mind until she said it. I didn't mention race in my original post because I didn't think it mattered, but now I'm wondering if more people would have suggested that if I had. I asked, "So you see a white man and 3 black kids fixing a window, and your first thought is slavery?" I could tell I struck a nerve because she left after dinner without saying much. That whole night, I kept thinking about her, our relationship, and what this meant. Is this why she never really wanted to move in with me? If we had kids, how would she treat kids of different races? How would she treat my stepdad's side of the family? I asked her to breakfast this morning and broke up with her. I told her straight up, I can't be with someone whose first thought when seeing a white guy and a black guy together is slavery. It sucks that this is something I'll have to consider when dating in the future. The idea of, is this person racist, was never something I really thought about before, but now I feel like I have to. I really hope my neighbors don't think I had bad intentions. I don't think they do, but I'm definitely not about to bring it up and make things weird. Anyway, kind of a weird update, but thanks to everyone who commented and told me I made a difference in those boys' lives. That really meant a lot to me. Now I'm gonna go read some Hellboy or something. Stories number 16. Aita for refusing to talk to my ex after everything that happened. I, 34M, am struggling with whether I'm in the wrong for refusing to talk to my ex, Sarah, 29F, not her real name. There's a lot of history here, and I'll do my best to explain everything clearly. In mid-2022, I met Sarah at work, and we hit it off immediately. I fell for her quickly, and it didn't take long before we started dating. However, early in our relationship, Sarah broke up with me over something minor. To make matters worse, she made a scene in front of everyone at work. I was devastated but didn't want to leave my job at first. Eventually, I realized I still had feelings for her, and seeing her every day became too painful. That's when I decided to quit and find a new job. We lived close to each other, so we bumped into each other frequently over the next few months. We started talking again, but even though I still had feelings for her, I couldn't bring myself to consider getting back together. What she had done hurt me deeply. After a couple of months, she told me she regretted breaking up with me over something so minor. She admitted that doing it in front of everyone was wrong and that she had been thinking about it ever since. She seemed genuinely remorseful, and I could see she meant it. Feeling that her apology was sincere, I asked if she wanted to give our relationship another try. She agreed, and by early 2023, we were officially back together. 1 year later, things were going great. We talked about marriage and building a future together, which made me feel ready to take the next step. I decided to surprise her with a proposal and started working extra hours to save for a house, so we could marry not long after. I didn't tell her why I was working so much because I wanted it to be a complete surprise. Then, out of nowhere, she asked for a break. I was blindsided, and when I asked why, she refused to explain. Around the same time, I noticed she had been talking non-stop about a new guy at her workplace. But suddenly, she stopped mentioning him altogether, which made me suspicious. Confused and hurt, I reached out to one of my close friends, Emily, not her real name, who, along with her boyfriend, still worked at the same place as Sarah. I vented to Emily about what was going on and asked if she knew anything. She said she didn't because she worked in a different department, but she promised to ask around. A few days later, Emily got back to me. She told me that Sarah had been feeling like I was distant lately, especially with me working extra hours and not going out much. Emily said some of Sarah's colleagues had been encouraging her to take a break, claiming I wasn't treating her well and wasn't as invested in the relationship. On top of that, they were trying to match her up with the new guy at work, saying they'd make a better pair. I told Emily about my plans to propose and buy a house for Sarah and me. That was the reason I'd been working so much. I wanted to surprise her with something big. After about 2 weeks, Sarah called me and asked to meet up. I agreed but told her up front that I needed an explanation for why she wanted a break before we could discuss anything else. She brought up how distant I had seemed, saying it made her feel like I wasn't as invested in the relationship anymore. I told her that if she had just talked to me about it, she would have known there was a reason for my behavior, but now, it didn't matter anymore. Then she mentioned the new guy at her workplace. I said his name before she could, and she looked surprised, asking how I knew. I told her I wasn't an idiot. I'd noticed how she suddenly stopped talking about him after bringing him up all the time. She swore that she had never cheated on me. I replied that looking for someone better at the first sign of trouble could be considered cheating by some. At that point, I told her I didn't want to hear whatever else she had to say. Whether or not she wanted to get back together didn't matter, I was breaking up with her regardless. The breakup deeply hurt me. I couldn't bear staying in the same place, so I asked my company for a transfer and used the money I'd saved for the proposal to start over in a new city. While talking to Emily, the friend I had vented to before, she apologized to me. She admitted that she had slipped up and told Sarah about my plans to propose and buy a house. Emily said Sarah broke down crying after hearing that. I appreciated Emily's honesty, but it didn't change what had happened. By mid-December last year, I returned to my hometown to spend Christmas and New Year's with my family. Some friends wanted to organize a party to get everyone together, since many of us, myself included, had moved away and were only visiting for the holidays. Sarah was invited too. We barely interacted that night, just a quick hi in passing. At one point, I glanced at her and saw her smiling while chatting with a group of women. That smile brought back so many memories. I realized that seeing her smile still made me feel the same way I did the first time I saw it. I thought to myself, how screwed up am I that I still feel this way? Despite those lingering feelings, I was still sad and deeply hurt by how things had ended. Looking back, I also started to blame myself. I should have paid more attention to how she was feeling. I could have told her about the extra work and why I was doing it. Maybe things would have turned out differently. Later that evening, one of my friends mentioned that Sarah's relationship with the guy from her work had only lasted a couple of months. After the holidays, I planned to return to the city where I now lived. My vacation ended on January 6th, so I decided to leave on Friday. That way, I'd have Saturday to sort everything out at home and prepare for the week ahead, with Sunday to relax before going back to work. Before I left, one of my friends from back home called me. He said he had a favor to ask on behalf of someone else and warned me that I wouldn't like it. I could already feel my stomach sinking. Then he told me it was Sarah. She was moving to the same city where I lived to work at her relative's company, and she needed a ride. He asked if I could take her. I didn't even think about it before I said no. The idea of being stuck in a car with her for hours was too much to bear. It would have been painfully awkward, just like the party, and I wasn't ready to put myself through that. He told me that Sarah and I needed to talk, but I wasn't having any of it. I went back home, and last week, I went for a run and stopped to rest a little in a park when I heard a familiar voice say, "Hi." It was Sarah. She tried to start a conversation by asking how I was and mentioning that we didn't get a chance to talk at the party, but I cut her off, saying I didn't want to talk to her. She told me not to be like that we needed to have a conversation, but I said no. She asked how I could still resent her after almost a year and after everything we'd been through, but I told her it wasn't resentment. I was very honest. I told her that thinking about her, talking about her, or even seeing her still hurts a lot, and that's why I couldn't talk to her. She said that was exactly why we needed to talk. I didn't see the point. I just walked away. Since then, Sarah's tried to approach me twice more, and I've shut her down both times. Some of my friends think I'm being too harsh and that I should talk to her for closure. Others say it's not okay to torture her over what happened forever. But that's not what this is about. I don't have any resentment or negative feelings toward her anymore. I even recognize now that I share some of the blame, but it still hurts. I can't talk to her because it's like reopening an old wound that never fully healed. So, Aita for refusing to talk to her. TLDR, my ex, Sarah, broke off our relationship almost a year ago, and I've since moved on as best I can. Recently, she's been trying to talk to me, but I told her I can't because it still hurts too much. Some friends think I'm being too harsh, but I don't resent her, I just don't want to reopen old wounds. Aita for refusing to talk to her. Additional information from OOP after reading comments. Reply, thank you all for your advices. I just want to explain better one thing, my friends are not calling me or messaging me saying that I should talk to her, that's just the opinion of some of them when the subject was brought up. Relevant comments. Commenter 1, I don't think you're an AH but I do think you resent her more than you are willing to admit and haven't actually worked through it internally yet. Reply, you might be right. Sometimes I think I'm totally over it, but then I realize it still haunts me. Commenter 2, some people might say you need closure, but it seems like you've already processed a lot of the situation, and talking to her could just bring up more pain. You don't owe her anything, especially when it's affecting your well-being. You've already made it clear how you feel, and you're setting boundaries, which is important for healing. Reply, that's what I think, but I don't know, sometimes I'm not sure. Commenter 3, moving to your city, wanting a ride there where you're trapped in the car with her for hours, ignoring your rejections and being persistent. Those are not the actions of someone who wants closure to move on. That's as someone trying to wiggle their way back into your good graces. Reply, good point. Commenter 4, once was a mistake, twice was a lesson and a third time is you being stupid. That's like watching the same movie but expecting a different ending. Don't do it to yourself. Reply, there won't be a third time. I was already sure about not going back to her, and you guys' comments are helping me make up my mind about not talking to her. Update. Hey everyone, I wanted to give an update and thank you all for your input. I took the time to read through every comment, and while I didn't respond to all of them, it was only because I didn't have anything to add. I'm truly grateful for everyone who shared their thoughts. It has been incredibly helpful. After reading everything and thinking it through, I've decided to stick to my decision not to talk to Sarah. Something I forgot to mention in my original post, though I did tell a few commenters, is that I blocked her everywhere after we broke up the second time. Over the last few days, it seems like her persistence has started to backfire. Some of our mutual friends, including the ones who initially told me I should talk to her, have become frustrated with her constant attempts to contact me. Apparently, they've started turning on her because of it. 3 days ago, Emily, the friend I vented to back then, made a post on social media about stalkers. She didn't name Sarah, but a lot of people picked up on what she meant. I've also seen several comments on my original post suggesting that Sarah might have been stalking me. Her job in the same city and her coincidental appearance at the park all line up with that theory. For what it's worth, I know her uncle owns a company here, so maybe that is really why she moved. But honestly, it's not my problem, and I'm not gonna look into it. Things have been quieter. Friends have dropped the subject, and Sarah hasn't tried to reach out again. That is, until yesterday. I watched the UFC event with some coworkers. When it ended, I was heading to my car when my phone rang. It was one of our mutual friends calling. She said she had been talking to Sarah and asked if she could pass along a message. I sighed but told her to make it quick. The message was simple. Sarah said she understands why I don't want to talk to her. She promised she wouldn't try to reach out again but added that she still thinks we need to talk. She said the door is open if I ever want to. I told my friend I didn't have a message to pass back and asked her not to bring up Sarah again in our conversations. If what Sarah said is true, it's a relief, but I'm not holding my breath. I wouldn't be surprised if she tries something else. Maybe she thinks giving me space will make me go to her, but it won't. That chapter of my life is closed. Right now, I just want to focus on myself. I probably won't be dating anyone anytime soon. If there is one thing I've learned, it's that I need to get to know people better before jumping into a relationship. I've also been thinking about how loosely I use the word friend. That is another part of my life I need to rethink. Some of the people I have called friends have proven they don't have my best interests at heart. A few people suggested therapy in the comments, and I'll admit, it is something I've been considering. For now, I'm giving myself time to heal on my own, but if I still don't feel right after a while, I will look into it. Thanks again to everyone who took the time to comment. Your advice has been a huge help in sorting all this out. Relevant comments. Commenter 1, good for you for sticking to your boundaries. It sounds like you're taking positive steps for yourself. Reply, yes, just moving forward instead of thinking about the past. Commenter 2, it sounds like you are doing well and moving on. Keep focusing on yourself and enjoying what you have. If you feel you need counseling, do it when you are ready. Good luck. Reply, I think now people around me understand my situation and what I truly need, that will help a lot. Commenter 3, this is exactly why monkey branching is a terrible dating practice. It's cheating with extra steps, that's why she keeps pushing. She knows what she did, just like she knows what she lost. Yet, ironically, she's too naive to understand that even if y'all got back together, you don't look at her the same. That's totally understandable. Reply, you're right, it would not be the same. Commenter 4, good for you with holding to your boundaries. The moment she wasn't getting the amount of attention she wanted, she sought out a coworker to monkey branch to. It was cheating. She wasn't remorseful as she began a relationship with that guy. All she wants now is to act like she didn't cheat on you and rekindle your relationship. She's already proven that she will cheat with whoever shows her attention. That's not someone to be in a relationship with. Have you not dated since the breakup? Personally, that helped me get over my ex-wife who cheated. It's been a year. There's someone special out there for you. Not every woman is like your ex. Good luck. Reply, I've dated other women since the breakup, just nothing serious. Stories number 17. Aita for telling my mom I don't want her in my house anymore after she accused my husband of stealing, throwing away her things. My mom loves to accuse others of stealing her stuff, which 99% of the time she's just misplaced. Yesterday she accused my husband of throwing away my jacket because she couldn't find it. I told her I was not okay with her doing that and to stop. She apologized and later that night called to tell me she left her charger at my house. I advised it wasn't here, so she said my husband must have thrown it away. I gave her a moment to correct herself and instead she doubled down, so I hung up on her. She called today to apologize and I told her I didn't want her coming over or bringing anything into my house anymore. She flipped out and hung up on me. This is pretty common behavior from her, so Ida. TLDR, I'm not allowing my mother to come over because she keeps accusing us of throwing her things away. She thinks it's funny. I find it offensive and now she's pissed at me. I might be the asshole cause my mom is over 70 and while she's been making a genuine effort to be considerate and be aware of boundaries, she's a million miles from being reasonable, and maybe I should add this to the long list of things I've let go. Edit. Y'all, I wish it was Alzheimer's, but it's not. It's been a lifelong problem. Stories number 18. Aita for denying my ex's son after he abandoned us and I took the choice alone to give him up for adoption. I, 32F, had a baby boy when I was 16. Yes, I know how that sounds like. No, we weren't careful. Judge me all you want on that front, I've dealt with that for years. Mike, 33M, was my boyfriend then, and when I found out about my pregnancy, he did a disappearing act with help from his family. Something future college star something. My parents were always blunt. What happened next was my choice. After a lot of thinking, and deciding abortion just wasn't for me, I respect that right, I'm not here to debate it. It was just not for me. I chose to give up the baby for adoption. My parents knew a super sweet couple that were looking to adopt. We met and I just knew they were the right people. This turned from a teen mistake to an almost surrogacy. I started homeschool to finish my education and to have rest. The adoptive parents were with me for everything and even paid for most of the medical cost. The adoptive mother was a teacher, so she helped me with my schoolwork and to prepare for college. They were present for the birth and I refused to hold the baby. Instead, his actual mother did. And it was just right. I've stayed in the baby's life in a distant position as a special aunt. Well, he's no longer a baby and he knows who I am, but his mom is the same woman that raised him and I continue to be his special aunt. The only change is now he knows who to call if he needs a kidney. His sense of humor is like mine, go figure. We talk maybe once in a blue moon, which in all honesty is the best. He's happy and I don't regret giving him up to have a happy life. For my part, I married 6 years ago. My husband, Aaron, 44M, was divorced in good terms with Bella, 40F. They have 2 children together. A boy that is 16 and a girl that is 19. Aaron made it clear since we began dating that his kids' approval was important and that Bella was part of his life forever, not as a spouse but as a friend and mother to his children. I also told Bella and him about my teen pregnancy. Well, to begin with the kids, my stepdaughter and I get along well. She's obviously closer to her mother, but she still does girls' days with me every so often. It's more like friends though. My stepson is incredibly close to me. He calls me his other mom and always asks me to be present for important events. We bonded when his childhood dog passed away, as my cat died about the same time. Bella and we're best friends. I know people have complicated relationships with their partner's exes, but we always show respect to each other. I never tried to take her place. I know Aaron and her shared something special long before I was in the picture. That's their history. And I am a stepmom, not a mom. Her place in the kid's life is not up for competition. The reason for this background is that the whole mess with Mike started when I took my stepson to a medical appointment. It wasn't serious, though he did have to use anesthesia. Aaron and Bella both couldn't get the day off. They tried, but their jobs are on call and they cannot easily take time off. So I went on my own to be my stepson's support. I didn't recognize Mike as one of the doctors. His real name, both first and last name, are incredibly common and it had been years. Not to mention my priority was being my stepson's support and everything else was secondary. After my stepson was done, he was a bit out of it as expected. I was setting him up in the car and making sure he was comfortable when Mike came over. He told me he had been thinking about me and our son for so long, and he was glad our boy was okay. It really took me a few minutes for my brain to click on what was going on, and he kept on rambling about apologies and how he wasn't ready to be a father blah blah blah. Eventually I just sighed and loudly said, "This is not the baby I was pregnant with. I gave him up for adoption after I gave birth. I am a stepmother." My loopy stepson chimed in with, "Other mom." I had to hold back a smirk to be honest. Mike was stunned by that and it gave me time to catch him up on the important details. I gave up the baby, he knows what happened and why I gave him up. I married a man with 2 children, I am happy and don't want him in my life. And no, I won't give him contact information for the adoptive family. He is 16 years too late. That was the end of it, and I got into my car to get my stepson home to rest. Since then Mike found me in social media and has been painting this sob story about me denying him a chance to be a father. How I was a poor mother that threw away her child to raise someone else's children. I'm basically the she-devil apparently. Most of our former classmates that saw the post reminded him that he left me. Some of his HS friends even pointed out he laughed about leaving me pregnant. I didn't know that part. A few of his relatives have reached out to bash me about taking Mike's chance to be a father. That it made me a poor Christian. I'm not. I'm Jewish to begin with. A few friends did tell me it was a *tch move to give the baby up without telling Mike. I don't personally think I was in the wrong, but in case I decided to leave the judgment to the internet masses. So, Reddit, Aita, clearing something out, the adoptive parents and bio child have a phone number to contact Mike's parents if they want. I have no say if they do or not. I just won't give Mike any information on them. Comments. Commenter 1. These people are fucking psycho. Block your bio kid might decide for himself to try and find his bio dad one day, but it's your job to defend his privacy until then. And make sure his decision is informed, i.e. he knows that his bio dad is a complete ass. Reply. I told him everything when his parents decided it was time to tell him who I was really. I didn't make Mike into a villain, just said he left after I told him I was pregnant and never reached out. He's been clear that while I am his biological mother and Mike is his biological father, he doesn't see either of us as parents. I am his aunt and Mike is a stranger. Commenter 2. I hope Mike never finds him. If he does, make sure your nephew gets more details about Mike's actions, so he doesn't give him a chance at all. Commenter 3. OP should definitely warn the kid's parents in case Mike shows up wanting to play at being dad. Finding someone isn't that hard these days, and if OP is in their lives, even minimally, that will make it easier. Protect the kid. Update. Aita for denying my ex's son after he abandoned us and I took the choice alone to give him up for adoption. Update. This is probably the one and only update I'll be doing. Because to be honest, I got other things to do and I have my main Reddit account for lurking. I'm going to start with the important matter. A lot of people were worried about my biological kid and what he wished when it came to Mike. Well, I got his permission to post this. He spoke to Mike once a few days after I told him where he could find Mike. I won't share all the details, only the final decision. There won't be any more contact between them. The kid doesn't want a second dad and Mike wasn't willing to be in his life unless he had the position of dad. So he's going no contact with Mike. There was more to it, but it's very personal and I feel it's not my place to share it. The kid and I will continue to have a relationship as aunt and nephew. And he knows whatever he needs medically, I'll always be first in line to give blood, kidney, etc. For those wondering why Mike is so big into contact with the kid, I found out a few details via his friends. Mike can have more kids. He just hasn't had a stable relationship in years. Which I can believe since I finally had enough and decided to accept going to have coffee with him to get some things squared away. My husband came of course, but he sat in another table to let me deal with it. I asked him to. The conversation was a shit show, to be honest. Mike brought me flowers and chocolate-covered strawberries, my old favorites. He treated it all like some date. I nipped that bud immediately. I introduced my husband and told him we were very much in love and happy, so I don't appreciate any attempts at unwanted romance. Once we sat down, he started by telling me what I knew about him having failed relationships. That he felt no woman could meet his standards for a wife and mother to his children since he already saw me as that. He claims he feels guilty for choosing college over me and our baby. He was well aware of the court dates regarding custody and that I was trying to put the baby up for adoption. When he saw me taking care of my stepson, he thought I had chickened out of giving the baby away. Seeing me be all caring of our baby boy made him think how great it would be if the three of us could be a family, and maybe have a bigger family down the road. He had the gall to ask me if I would consider divorcing my husband and try to fight for custody of our son. I have to admit, I laughed in his face. I probably was overly cruel, but I had years of stress, heartache, and judgmental encounters to drop on him. I told him all I saw in him was a coward. A coward that instead of staying to make adult decisions decided to run with help of mommy and daddy. That any love I had for him died the day I had to push out a full human being, and instead of knowing I had support from him, there was a big empty spot where the dad was supposed to be. That I almost ruined my life and had to throw away prom, senior pictures, and even graduation, because I was far too pregnant to party, appear on the yearbook or walk into stage to get my diploma. He got to party and enjoy life while I had to fight tooth and nail for an inch of respect, yet we both had unprotected sex. The only difference is his dick wasn't big enough to pop a baby out or satisfy a woman to begin with, that was a bit mean, but not sorry. After I calmed down, I simply told him I had a happy life with a man that loves me. Great stepkids that are the greatest gift. A best friend who lets me be a stepmom to her children. A nephew who I adore and who, despite our history as biological mother and child, he still loves me as his special aunt rather than hate me. My family is perfect because he's not part of it and I have no intentions to live in his fantasy. And that I can't wait to get pregnant with my husband's child to add to that perfection. I also told him to leave our biological kid alone. He has made his choice and it is up to him if he ever reaches out for Mike. And also let him know I would be making a formal complaint to his hospital for his harassment. Good thing my husband took screenshots, because by the time we got home, Mike had deleted all the posts. A lot of his former friends did repost screenshots making fun of him. The silver line in all of this is that I have reconnected with my high school classmates and to be honest, they are great people. Seems Mike is in a handful that stayed in his school hype mindset. It's been about 3 days and no signs of Mike. My husband did get the biggest ego boost when he overheard me going off on Mike and has been insufferable, in a good way. So, there's mostly good news. Hopefully one of these days we'll get even more good news since we actually are excited at the idea of having a baby together. Comments. Commenter 1. Regarding him asking you to divorce your husband and fight together for our son, outside of getting physical, there's practically no overreaction to that. Reply, I almost got physical to be honest. But I had my nails just done. He wasn't worth breaking a nail. Commenter 2. Very few things are worth breaking a nail, but Han, breaking one to hurt that bastard would have been one of those things. Reply, yeah, but he's not worth the $150 bill. He wasn't even worth the $14 bill at the cafe. Commenter 3. Good point. Commenter 4. Of course he didn't pick up the check. Reply, oh we left before and I paid my part and my husband's. Don't know if he paid his. Commenter 5. Let's be honest, meeting his commitments isn't really his thing. This is worthy of one of those Reddit phrases, the lion, the witch and the audacity of this BTCH to say, our son. Stories number 19. Aita for barely eating any of the cake my girlfriend made for my birthday and refusing to eat anything else she bakes until she apologizes. I've been with my current girlfriend for almost 3 years and we pretty much get along for most things except when it comes to my mother. My mother is mentally slow, I don't know what else to call since she grew up pretty rough, was never formally diagnosed, and had me at 13. Her being physically and emotionally younger made her a fun mom, just not very responsible. In any case, this is one of the main reasons my girlfriend feels uncomfortable around my mom, because she says she has no manners and can be rude, both of which can be true at times, but my mom doesn't do things intentionally, it's just how she was raised and it's hard to teach her new things. The second reason is that I spend a lot of money for my mom to live in an expensive facility community so she can be independent but still have some help. She thinks it's a waste of money, especially since she wants to be able to buy a big house in the future, and I refuse to pay her medical insurance despite having the money. She's currently on a plan that she can't afford, which she brings up a lot in arguments. She's not my wife, so I don't want to commit to something like that yet, since I'm not sure how that would work if she ever decided to end the relationship or if it increased to something I'd rather not pay. I won't lie, I love my girlfriend, but she's not my wife, therefore not a priority, and I've tried proposing twice and been turned down each time. Anyways, I feel like I derailed for a second, but I felt some context was important. This year she decided to make me a cake for my birthday. I was happy because she's a great baker and even better at decorating, so I asked for a chocolate sheet cake with canned frosting and rainbow sprinkles. She said it was fine but kept suggesting I have something special and less cheap this year. My mom has made me this birthday cake every year since I was a child, but of course this year she couldn't, and I told her I was sure that's what I wanted, no presents and no people over. When I woke up the morning of my birthday, she had me eat breakfast in the living room because the dining room and kitchen were a mess. I'm not sure if I believe that now, and got me up and out of the house after lunch telling me it still wasn't ready, and I couldn't see it because she also had a really small surprise, as well. I come back an hour later as she'd asked, and when I open the door to pretty much everyone we know and even don't know well, except my mom, her parents are there, leap out and with those blow things. I tried to act happy, but to be honest I didn't want anyone there at all. If it had just been our families maybe it would have been nice, but I was secretly annoyed. Then when I saw the cake, it wasn't anything like what I asked for. It was 3 round lemon cream cakes, the naked fancy kind with flowers and berries. It looked incredible, and I could tell it must have taken ages, but it's not what I wanted, and I'm pretty neutral about lemon desserts. Everyone brought gifts and I tried to pretend that I liked them, and I did, but in the moment I just didn't feel like opening and reacting to gifts, so I feel like my reactions were underwhelming. Then when it was time to cut the cake she gave me a big piece and I didn't even finish half of it. I wasn't in the mood. I just lied and said I was too full from eating all of her favorite foods. I'll admit that was a bit too blunt, especially since there was company, and she was a little short with me the rest of the party. Finally my mom comes just after everyone finished and according to my girlfriend, she accidentally told her the wrong time. She brought me a single cupcake just how I like it, as a gift because she couldn't make the cake this year. I was happy and I couldn't hide it. My girlfriend noticed and kind of gave my mom the stink eye, which is fine as long as she wasn't being rude, but then she took it a step further and just outright made a bad joke about how the cupcake was unique like my mom. She still likes dresses and 2 ponytails, and a few people even laughed. Fast forward to later, I'm eating my cupcake in bed hoping to end the day on a good note. I didn't complain at all outside of that one comment because I didn't want to seem too ungrateful, but then says under her breath that of course I'd rather eat something that looks like it was made by toddler than actual quality. That was the last straw for me. We got into a heated argument, so I ended up sleeping on the couch on my own birthday. The next morning, I made it clear that I wasn't going to eat any of her desserts until she apologizes. It's been 3 days. She told everyone that I hated the party and now everyone is calling me ungrateful, plus her family found out I don't pay her insurance, and right now things are on and off tense and not tense between us. Am I the asshole here? Edit. Not an update, just wanted to say that I read all the comments and now I'm strongly considering just biting the bullet and saying I don't care, especially since she only knows of both because I told her not due to actual evidence. It's just not something I wanted to be outed for, metaphorically and literally, but in any case I guess the statute of limitations in my state would have already passed for me, funnily right when we started dating, so at least if things go south I can finally get the plastic surgery I've always wanted and a new name. Trying to make myself feel angry and not funny though, but it's hard because she always makes me feel sad and then happy again after, but I'm going to tell her we aren't twin flames or anything close anymore and probably update when I feel better if things get intense. Fortunately, my mom is happy as always and we talk every day. For those wondering, she's so nice she doesn't always notice when people are being mean, so I won't and would never tell her how my ex-girlfriend truly felt about her if she asks why things are going wrong. Second, another thing that I just wanted to add is that my mom fortunately was not an SA victim. The comments thinking that made me irrationally sad for some reason. My father was the same age. I don't know if he had a disability, but he was pretty strange in a good way. Didn't talk much, but he liked drawing the same types of birds and flowers and they got along well and she was loved. I just didn't mention him because well he's dead. Anyway, sorry, I have a tendency to get long-winded and over-explain, but I'm going to sleep now. Relevant comments. Commenter 1. Why are you with this woman? She refused your proposal twice, doesn't listen to what you want, and she's disrespectful towards your mother. Reply. In short, it's partially because she's good at being loving when she wants to and she has something that she said she'd use against me, but that's a longer story and mostly my fault. Commenter 2. Those aren't good enough reasons, I'm sorry. Is what she has against you so god-awful that it's worth spending any more time with this creature? The fact she has even said that makes her despicable. She doesn't even want to marry you, which is actually a good thing for you. Good luck, dude. Reply. It is unfortunately, I used make adult videos and scam people to pay for school. It's not something I'm proud of or can completely get rid of. I'm a changed person, but that doesn't change the past or what my job would think since I work with private school children. Commenter 3. If she's blackmailing you, she doesn't love you. Update. Added context because the edit in my original post wasn't clear. I added it in the comments, but in case it's still confusing it's also here. Since the post is already long I guess I'll comment instead. Maybe I'm just a terrible writer when I'm tired, but writing this a few hours ago felt like it would make sense, so sorry. To make it make sense I used to make adult videos mostly with other men, so I don't want anyone to know. Second, I used to scam dates by using their credit card information online to buy textbooks and personal items because I could only really afford food but it was still bad and sometimes, I wonder if they didn't eat so I could, and it makes me paranoid. Even if I can't go to jail now, I can still be socially ostracized. And plastic surgery is just that if my social life is ruined, I can buy a new face and name. I was half joking. Also, for those wondering, I didn't mention the reason why my girlfriend rejected my marriage proposal twice is because it sounds really bad to people who don't understand what it's like to live with someone disabled. I love my mother dearly, but, in all honesty, I would not want to have children like her. They won't have any easy life, and that's the reason basically she thinks I might pass on bad genes. I'd like to try to have at least one child anyway because I don't have any disabilities, so I'm hoping my child would be healthy as well. But I don't think not wanting to adopt or take a chance is a bad reason to reject someone. In any case, I decided to take the coward's way out and leave for work excessively early to avoid her, and I put a breakup note in her lunch bag. I'm expecting to feel awful later, so I think I'll update again when I'm not sad, which takes me a while. And again, I'm sorry for rambling. Another thing I also saw mentioned while reading replies is that twin soul is controversial, and I'm sorry and I wasn't intentionally being misogynistic. I've just seen it used and thought it meant some of the same things as soulmate. Actual update. She read the note and wasn't mad, she just said she wanted to talk things over, but when I get there she's pretty mad, and because apparently her coworker saw the note and how pathetic leaving a note is, in hindsight I wasn't thinking and agree. The rest is just a blur. We get into a physical fight which we've gotten into before but never this bad, and I ended up breaking my forearm. She was throwing things as I was walking away and I was crying so I slipped. Then the ride to the ER was probably the worst I've felt in my life. I was still crying while they were trying to ask me questions, and then they either gave me something or I passed out. Either way, when I woke up she apologized, but I could tell she was still a little mad because she got food and didn't offer me any. After I get discharged, we get home, get into another argument, and I get mad and tell her she can leave. Her sister lives less than an hour away so she'd be fine. Eventually she agrees to leave, but she left most of her things here. She told me I have 3 days to pack up her stuff so her parents can come get it, which is fair I guess. I'm wondering if I should pack the Rainian with her stuff because looking at it now is humiliating. Surprisingly she only made 2 posts about it on social media and it's only very vaguely exposing things I've done. It's not as bad as I thought it would be, and all most of my friends felt bad, but a few, her friends first, have blocked me or left me angry texts. Her mom sent a voicemail crying and saying how disappointed they were in me, and honestly I do feel a little bad for them because that's their daughter. It must feel sad, but I really just want to leave her stuff outside without talking to them. I haven't told my mom anything yet because I know she'll worry. I don't have an appetite right now because there's still leftover cake in the fridge and looking at it just makes me tired. I think I'm going to take a break from dating for a while and work on being happy alone because right now all I want to do is call and apologize. Relevant comments. Commenter 1. If this is true, are you pressing charges? Reply. No, since I technically broke my own arm, plus it would be beyond mortifying to file a police report. Commenter 2. What about a protective order since you said there was a physical fight? Reply. She's strong but not violent, so I doubt I have to worry about her trying to fight me ever again. Commenter 3. She threw things at you. She's abusive. I'm glad you're getting out of an abusive relationship where you had to walk on eggshells out of fear of how she would react. Stories number 20. Is it just me, or is this sub quickly getting overran by red pill philosophy? I've been lurking for a few months. Mostly anonymously. This sub has seen a lot of rapid growth, but with it, I'm basically seeing the same type of shit that I came to this sub to avoid. To me, this seemed like one of the few legitimately healthy minilab subreddits, and now I don't feel like that's the case anymore. It's still one of the better ones, but it's rapidly declining in real time. I came here to talk about men's shit while avoiding machismo red pill bullshit, and now those sentiments are starting to proliferate here pretty hard. Like I'm seeing some legitimately repugnant takes on self-improvement, women, the world, etc. Is it even possible to host a public menslib forum today without getting overran by insecure hypermask wannabes? Like we're just trying to live life and deal with human issues. Is there even room for that, as this place continues to radicalize? Like fuck, I just read a thread today where a bitter divorcee was giving misogynistic advice to an insecure 22-year-old dude. Post history on a family rights subreddit and everything. How are we supposed to talk about living life and doing guy shit when there's a major undercurrent of bullshit? Edit. My rapidly growing blacklist is kind of proving my point. Y'all are really coming out of the woodwork for this one. Edit 2. Yep, notifications are off. This has completely proved my point, and I'm done. Stories number 21. Aita for serving divorce papers to my ex at his job the day before he thought he was coming back home. I'm sorry, this is really long. Backstory. I, 59F, was married to my now ex, 57M, we'll call him Ed, for 10 years, together for 13, but originally met him 40 years ago as teenagers. He was in my circle of friends but we never dated. We used to live in Florida, but when I was 19 I moved back to Michigan where I am originally from. 27 years later I went back to the city in Florida where I used to live to visit friends. I ran into Ed while on vacation and we began talking on the phone daily. 3 months later he left Florida and moved in with me. 3 years later we were married. Not my first but his first. We had our ups and downs but mainly we got along fine and didn't argue much. He would throw tantrums if things didn't go his way and would punish me by sleeping on the edge of the bed, which was fine with me, or he would not talk to me and slam things. 2 years into our marriage things went horribly wrong when he got into drugs. It was horrible. One night I finally had enough and was on the phone with my MIL telling her I was sending back to Florida when the sheriff's department knocked on my door. Someone had found my husband unconscious, severely beaten, in a ditch a block from our house. We lived in a small village with woods across the street. I raced to the hospital and didn't recognize him when I saw him. He was so swollen and bruised. Now, my husband was a man who could fight and he was strong. Come to find out it took 3 men to do this. They thought they could rob him since it was payday, but he had been home and purposely left his wallet at home. I sat with him 24/7 while he was in neurotrauma ICU. I slept on a couch in his room, I prayed over him, I bathed him and took care of him even after he came home. This actually saved his life. He got clean and went back to work full-time, always putting me and my grandson first before his needs. He went to work and came home. That's it. 4 years later I finished my education and became an ordained priest and have been the pastor at my church ever since. At first he didn't mind, but then he would say things like, "I didn't sign up for this," even though I never pushed church on him. I knew he believed in God and he prayed daily. I would invite him to Christmas and Easter service and he also came when I ordained and when my grandson, who calls him Grandpa, was baptized. For several years things were really good. Then suddenly he began coming home from work, showering, changing clothes and leaving. At first he said it was to watch whatever sports was playing on TV because we didn't have live TV. Then he told me he'd be back whenever he got back. Then, things went back to how they were. We laughed a lot, we joked around, and I began getting the usual kiss goodbye before he left for work. One night, he had done his laundry, like he always did, and I talked to him while he was folding it. He never wanted me to do his laundry, so that wasn't new. We ended the night laughing as he was trying on old clothes. The next morning I woke up and went out to the living room to ask what time he had to be at work, but he was gone. I assumed he had to be there early. I walked back into the bedroom and saw his keys on the bed, which made me wonder why he would walk to work on such a cold day. It was December 1st. I started leaving the bedroom again and noticed his laundry basket missing, so I went to the laundry room and it wasn't there. I went back into the bedroom and noticed his closet empty. I called him to see where he was and asked if he had moved out, and of course his answer was yes. Come to find out, he had met a woman at his job who works for one of those shopping apps where people buy and deliver your groceries. He worked for a large grocery store chain. He had moved in with her. Over the next 6 months he called almost daily and would say things like, "Our marriage will survive this, just give me time." He even told me he would be mad if I began dating. During one of our phone calls he told me he wasn't happy with her and was going down to Florida to visit family. He said he wanted to come back to me when he came back to Michigan. The plan was this. He would pack things that he couldn't live without but leave things at his new GF's house to make her think he was coming home to her. He planned on giving his 2-week notice while gone and planned on looking for another job when he came home. By this time I knew I didn't want him back. I found my self-worth again and had made new friends with neighbors once he was gone. Come to find out, nobody liked him. Even the women at the gas station across the street told me how he flirted with them when he came in. Even an elder at my church found out he was cheating but didn't tell me because she didn't want to hurt me. So I went to the courthouse and got a divorce package and filled out all of the paperwork. Where I live I was able to serve him myself. I decided that since he chose to end our marriage while working at the store, I would officially end it there. So, the day before he was supposed to fly to Florida, I made sure I looked really good. New hairstyle, makeup, and my outfit was sexy. I went to his job, found him, and handed him the divorce papers. I told him that he was wrong. Our marriage wasn't surviving this. You should have seen his face. He was actually upset with tears in his eyes, and for a moment I felt bad. Then I reminded myself what he had done to me. He didn't just leave me in the middle of the night, but he stopped talking and doing things with my grandson who thought Grandpa was the greatest. He left me in a house that I couldn't afford without him, and I would have been homeless if my church wouldn't have paid for an apartment. He told me women were stupid. He actually thought he could come home as if nothing happened. That was one thing he said to me on the phone because I never brought up the past. Last week, 6 months after our divorce was final, my car was repossessed. When we were together he got 2 loans and I agreed to use my SUV as collateral because I never pictured my life without him. He stopped paying on his loans, so they took my car. I wasn't notified because they sent him the letters. They wanted me to pay off his loans to get it back. I burst out laughing and said that will never happen. So, my question is, was I the AH for serving him the way I did? Relevant comments. Commenter 1. Wow, I can't believe he would still try and say the marriage would survive from the phone at his girlfriend's house. NTA. Reply, all of his calls were while he was on his lunch break at work. Commenter 2. NTA for serving him. My only question is, why did it take you so long? Reply, I felt broken at first. Then my niece passed away. Then my own health fell apart and I was in the hospital 31 days, so I had to build my strength back up. Also, I didn't want to tell my congregation that I was getting a divorce. But mainly my health. Commenter 3. OP. Truly, there's not enough bad shit that can happen to this human vermin. Did he violate any court orders when he defaulted on the 2 loans and caused the repossession? By the way, your grandson is best served to have no contact with this Jekyll/Hyde persona. Reply, unfortunately no, he didn't. I had forgotten about the loans when I filed the divorce. We always had separate accounts. What made me mad was when I called our credit union about my car being gone and they got rude and told me they sent me a letter to my church. They didn't know I am the pastor. I said, I am the pastor and all of the mail gets put on my desk. There was never a letter. That was last Monday. Then on Wednesday a letter from the CU came stating my was going to be taken. They mailed it to me the same day I called. 2 days after the car was taken. I'm not inconvenienced without a car. My daughter and grandson moved in with me and we share her car now. Commenter 4, you and your ex were both required to disclose all assets and liabilities. Your ex's non-disclosure could possibly be addressed with a post-divorce motion. Reply, we didn't have any real assets so we did a DIY divorce and I had forgotten about his loans. My friend who is a judge said that whatever he left behind when he left he forfeited. I did give him things after he left that I knew he had forgot to take. I packed them and set them on the porch. Update, thank you for the comments and support. Here's a reminder of what happened. My now ex-husband got a loan while we were married and used my car as collateral. A year later he left me for someone he met at work. He kept telling me that our marriage would survive, just give him time. He ended up not being happy with her and planned to come back to me after he left to visit his family out of state. He planned on not telling his GF he was leaving her and was only packing what he couldn't live without. His plan was to return home to me when he came home. The day before he left to visit family I served him with divorce papers. 2 weeks ago my car was repossessed and the bank wanted me to pay my car off $3,000 and his 2 loans that he stopped paying on, $5,700. I was willing to pay my car off but told them I'd never pay for his loans and they refused. Here's what happened since my post. I found out where my car was being held at. 2 cities away. When I went to their website I discovered that it's also the location where they sell the repossessed cars during an online auction. They hold it every Monday for 24 hours. I called and asked if I could have my belongings out of it and they said yes. When I arrived they had my things in a bag, including my license plate. I registered online and this past Monday began bidding on my car. I ended up buying my car for $2,700. When I showed up to get my car the people laughed and said I'm not the first person to do this. I put my plate back on and came home. Now, I know the bank can still come after me for the balance, but I honestly don't care if it hits my credit report. I don't use credit cards, and in October my daughter closed on a brand new house. I had no other bills except my cell and utilities. I'm now living with her and my grandson. I was lucky enough to have enough time in to retire when my muscular dystrophy began causing more health issues and that money goes to my other bank. My MIL was happy to give me his new address so I can sue my ex for my half of our income tax return that he kept last year. She's even having us, me, daughter, grandson, stay with her when we visit Florida during my grandson's spring break. She's still calling Ed's GF Teresa, Trina, Tracy, everything except her name which does start with the letter T. I love this woman. Relevant comments. Commenter 1, NTA but why did you wait 6 months to divorce him when he left you for another woman? Reply, my health prevented me for most of the time. I was in the hospital 31 days and then had to get my strength back. Plus, I didn't want to explain I was getting divorced again, but mostly my health. Commenter 2, but you kept answering his calls on a daily basis while he was actively living at his mistress's home. I'm glad something finally clicked in you because that's not the case for a lot of women. Reply, I'm the beginning. I was shocked that he left and it wasn't that I wanted him to come home. I think it was more habit than anything. We always talked on his break. We did this for 13 years. Commenter 3, he deserves it. Commenter 4, NTA and you didn't make a scene when you served him. Congrats on attaining your freedom. Stories number 22. 7 years ago, I called my best friend's mom. My best friend texted me in the middle of the night. It was supposed to be her last message to me, and it was. We haven't messaged since. That night, 15-year-old me ran 20 minutes down the block at 1 a.m. I called her mom, 911 and even her brother, just in case. I got there the same time the ambulance did. I even let them in, with my spare key. At the hospital, the next morning, she told me she never wanted to see me again. I never did meet up with my best friend ever again, but she still belongs to the world and that means more. She is now living her dream life. I still speak to her mom, so I know. I've been seeing this "I'll call your mom" trend on TikTok and wanting to share this story. Call their mom. Edit, hearing your stories is heartbreaking. But thank you to everyone telling me things like, not all moms would do this. You're right. My message should go a bit more like this: call an ambulance, or someone else in the house area who will care. Stories number 23. Entitled Owner Stalks Me Because I Don't Want Our Dogs to Meet, Again. Edit. Thank you to everyone who's given me suggestions on how to deal with this. I didn't expect this many helpful comments and it makes me feel a lot better. I have contacted the police to ask for advice on how to proceed and if possible, I will file a report. One of my neighbors has offered to come to me if I see him again and I will also record if I see the man again. If he tries to wait for me near my house another time I will immediately call the police. Lastly, I cannot get pepper spray or any other dog repellent where I live, but I got some helpful advice on how to make it myself. I hope I will not have to use it, but if it's really necessary, I will not hesitate to do so. I would do anything to defend my dog. This just happened and I'm honestly kinda stressed about how to deal with this. For context, I own a 10-month-old Doberman puppy. When I just got her she met a local GSD who scared her to death by standing over her in an extremely dominant way while she was screaming out of fear. I told the owner to call his dog back but apparently the dog wouldn't listen if he tried, and she would just have to learn. Obviously I avoided the guy after this and there was another instance where I made her sit and look at me as he walked past, and the man just started yelling at me that my dog wouldn't amount to anything, etc. The way he said all this just has me perplexed. I can't imagine being this upset over me just minding my own business and I cannot imagine having the guts to act this way. Now to what happened today. I was walking my puppy back home and I could see that down the road this guy and his GSD were walking my way. No problem. I just crossed the road. The man then also crosses the road a few minutes later, now walking the direction I'm going, and when he sees me cross the road again, he stops and waits near my building, clearly trying to make eye contact with me even though I am still far away. Listen, there is absolutely no reason for this guy to stand there waiting while staring at me. He is clearly waiting for me so he can yell at me again, or maybe even send his dog at me, because I just have a strong suspicion that is what he wants to do. I walked across a little playground in front of my house as it was the only other way I could go to avoid him, but next time I may not be so lucky. As soon as he lost sight of me, he continued walking, clearly annoyed. The owner is an old man who clearly has never had a reason to fear anyone and I don't think anything I can say will make this situation better, but will definitely make it worse. He also clearly has nothing better to do and I wouldn't be surprised if he loves seeing his dog being dominant over others. The reason I don't let our dogs figure it out is because this dog is twice her size and she is terrified of GSDs, loves all other dogs. The dog is also extremely dominant and has no compassion for others. Kinda like the owner, lol. Anyway, I am dreading running into this guy again. Not sure what to do. I will do anything to protect my dog and I would have no issue letting the guy know that, but I'd rather avoid escalating the situation if possible, even if the guy is doing everything he can to escalate it. Stories number 24. My MIL almost killed my son to prove I was exaggerating. Mommy, I don't feel good. I rushed to Sammy, he was burning up. His breathing became shallow, then he collapsed in my arms. Panicking, I raced to my purse for the AP pen I carried everywhere. It wasn't there. I appended my purse, frantically tossing everything aside, but I couldn't find it. As Sammy tried to breathe, I screamed at Robert's mother to call 911. 911. Hello. My grandson is apparently having trouble breathing. Personally, I think his mother is exaggerating, but she insists you send someone. I didn't have time to focus on her words then, but that night, sitting in my son's hospital room, I remembered what she'd said the next night. I confronted her. Why did you tell 911 I was exaggerating while Sammy was on the floor struggling to breathe? Oh, please, she scoffed, are you still pushing this fake allergy? Haven't you milked it enough? He could have died, Louise. He was in the hospital with tubes down his throat. Jesus, let it go. It was only a little peanut butter. He's fine. What? You fed him peanut butter. I knew you were lying and I was right. He scarfed it down, no problem. He's strong. Stop making him weak with your BS. Furious, I told my husband what had happened. You know how my mom is, honey. She didn't mean anything by it. She could have killed our son. Do you even care? Honey, you're blowing this out of proportion. Were you at the hospital? Did you see your son on a respirator unable to breathe on his own? You know I was working. Funny how you're always working whenever we need you. You insisted on moving your mother in, but I'm the one who's always with her. Which I was willing to tolerate, but now she's endangering our son. He's fine, stop being so hysterical. Hysterical. Asshole. Disgusted, I left the room. The next week, Robert was out of town for work. His mother came downstairs to find all her belongings boxed up and on the porch. What the hell is this? She demanded. If I can't trust you with my son's safety, I can't have you living here. I've enrolled you at the local senior community, you'll like it. They have canasta. You can't do this. It's done, take care. I'll call Robert. Didn't he tell you? He's unreachable this week for work. You bitch. I'll tell the cops you abused me. Feel free, I've already let them know you're unstable and prone to imagining things. Dementia is such a tragedy. I'll kill you. She stumbled and put her hand to her chest. Everything okay, Louise? I can't breathe, need med. Oh dear, are you stressed? You know you're supposed to stay calm. Here, let me get your heart medication. I reached into her purse and handed her the bottle. Empty. Why? Oh, I figured you were exaggerating. Don't worry, you don't really need those, just be strong. Stories number 25. My grandpa found something heinous in my grandma's sock drawer. I talked to my grandpa. My grandma flushed it down the toilet and is going into therapy. They're staying together and gonna fix it. One last note here before I silence this post, I came here looking for advice on how to process this situation. Point blank, people I love are hurting, and it's affecting me mentally and emotionally. Only a handful of you had an ounce of compassion or consideration. I'm aware I put this out there on Reddit. I knew there was gonna be discourse and strong opinions, but I didn't expect people to start insulting my intelligence over something that happened before I developed consciousness, or implying that I'm inbred, or pointing out the obvious complexity of my family dynamic. Like BFR, I had Sparkles, no clue Sparkles, that my family is questionable and fucked up, unamused face. Yours isn't. They've been together all my life, so yes, their age gap is completely normal to me. Their relationship works for them and it doesn't have to make sense to you. They're still married and they're working through their issues like a team. Some of your parents could take notes. Original. So, some context. My grandma is technically my step-grandma, she's been around since I was 3 and I'm 28 now. Grandpa has been like my dad for my whole life. My grandpa is 69, my grandma is 45. My grandpa spent this entire time they have been together putting his hopes and dreams aside to build her a home, literally, from the ground up. The walls and roof of their home was literally raised by his hands. The small farm/ranch they own, he tends the crops, he feeds the horses and chickens because it was her dream to have a homestead. Not that my grandpa wasn't wanting it too. But he has put years and years of hard work, literal blood, sweat and tears. My grandpa should be retired and sitting on the couch drinking sangria, his favorite, and watching football, or on his boat in the middle of the lake because he loves sailing. But up until this week he was outside every day, rain or shine, building a homestead. My grandma, I love her, I really do. I was a troubled teen and she was the kind of parenting I needed. She helped to turn my life around to a positive note. She is capable and kind and a killer cook, and I have no trouble understanding why my grandpa fell for her all those years ago. She just gives up on things so easily. She was a butcher and made really good money, she was done with that in a year. She went to school for early childhood education, finished her required classroom hours for certification, quit. Became a realtor, sold one home, done. I think she's having trouble coming to terms with the fact that my grandpa is coming to an age where he has to retire. I would guess that she's trying a little bit of everything while she still can. 3 years ago a wildfire burned through our town and they lost half of their land, 15 of their 30 acres. Almost lost the house my grandpa built. Literally burned right up to the back deck. It was PG&E's fault the fire started, so of course, class action lawsuit. They got $800,000 payout. They bought new cars, a new tractor, a travel trailer, paid off the debt on their land, and various other debts. My grandma also decided to buy something else a couple of times. After their big spending spree my grandpa started noticing substantial chunks of money go missing. My grandma was refusing to come home and staying in the travel trailer that she parked at a friend's house. This week my grandpa found a baseball-sized ball of meth in her sock drawer. He went home, packed up some stuff, told their 17-year-old son, my uncle, to do the same, and he left. He didn't tell anyone where he went. He only told us, me and my mom, 44, and my aunt, 38, the why and that they were safe. My grandma had a history with drug abuse. My mom and her used to do it together when they were 19 to 22-ish. My mom saw it in July of last year. She noticed the way my grandma was acting. I didn't want to believe it because I thought better of my grandma. I thought that if my mom could put that shit behind her then so could my grandma. And I guess I'm just hurt and confused why she would do this to my grandpa and their boy. Like, why did this sudden influx of money suddenly make her break her sobriety? And I so badly want to confront her about it because she's posting all this stuff on Facebook that's implying that my grandpa is lying about it. But my grandpa is a man of integrity. He's the kind of man that took my mom out for ice cream because she broke a boy's nose for grabbing her breasts when she was like 12. Anyways, thanks for reading. TLDR, Grandpa, 69, has spent the last 25 years of his life literally building up a homestead for his stay-at-home wife, 45, and they suddenly got a lot of money and my grandma started doing meth again and he left. Now she's doing anything she can to say that he lying and trying to cover it up on social media. I don't care what to do here because I know I should stay out of it because it isn't my marriage, but I can't help but feel like she threw everything my grandpa has done away, and they were like my parents for a while, and I want to call her on her bullshit. Update: there have been a lot of accusations of grooming on my grandfather's part, and while I do understand how people could jump to that assumption, that isn't what it is. So I'm gonna answer some questions and address some of the things I'm reading in the comments. First and foremost, thank you to everyone who came forward with real advice on how to move forward with this. I've looked into local Naranon and Al-Anon meetings and plan on going to one soon. I think my best route of action as a bystander in this is to just provide support for my 17-year-old uncle and my grandpa. I reached out to both of them today. Uncle is doing okay and struggling to wrap his head around it, too. Grandpa will never admit to needing emotional support, product of his generation, so he says he's doing fine. I'm going to let my grandma reach out to me when she's ready to do so. I'm not gonna press the issue with her. My grandpa didn't groom my step-grandma. Grandma was 19 when she met my mother and 20 when she met my grandpa. They got married when she was 21 and he was 45. Step-grandma had 4 kids already when she met my grandfather. My creepy 26-year-old uncle, the twin uncles, and her daughter. I got their ages a little fucked up in a previous comment because I'm not super close with the twins and the daughter. But I grew up like brother and sister with the 26-year-old uncle and the 17-year-old uncle. My grandpa did not know that my step-grandma was using when they met. She came clean about it a little over a decade ago, and she swore up and down that she had left that behind her. My step-grandma knew exactly what she was doing and what she was getting into when she got into a relationship with my grandpa. My grandma pursued my grandpa. My grandpa turned her down a shit ton before he gave her a chance, and they both fell for each other. Thought their marriage, my grandma has worn the pants in the relationship. That being said, their entire relationship, she has been a grown adult, and had she felt any sort of trauma from grooming, she could have and would have left ages ago. So no, my grandpa didn't know her when she was young and isn't a predator because he married someone younger than him. No, I don't know my father personally. I know who he is and where he's been all of my life, but he was never an active parent. He was 19 when I was born, and as a teen dad he left. So no, I'm not inbred, no, I don't need a DNA test, and to the people that commented with implications like that, you're fucked up. No, we aren't in a cult. Trust me, I wish this was fictional, too. Stories number 26. Found my 24F husband, 25M, confessing about our sex life in Telegram group. Me and my husband have been married for 3 years, and we have a great marriage. We had a baby girl 6 months ago, and everything has been great. He is very supportive, and he was happy it was a girl. Today when he was taking a shower, I was using his phone checking Telegram. I talk his sister and my family on his phone. I found out he was in a group where you can vent anonymously and people can give you advice. At first, I thought he was just a member, but when I clicked on his profile, I found out he posted recently. What I read broke my heart. He was venting about how bad he feel for having small d and always remember how he is compensating when we use toys and he can't be dominant as much as he want because he know I wouldn't be submissive to him, and how he is very happy I didn't give birth to a boy because he didn't want to pass on his small gene, which is not true, and I'm very satisfied, I've never complained, to his son and make him suffer. He was glad we are not having sex and was thinking about having less sex and, if possible, asking me to have sex less in our marriage and let me have whatever sex toys I need. I was shocked and closed everything. After he got out of the shower, he ate some food and asked what was wrong. I just told him nothing because I was in shock. He kissed me and left. I have been crying all day. He called and texted me to ask if I was okay and how is the baby. He will come back tomorrow. I don't even know how to confront him. Please help. Should directly ask him. Stories number 27. Aita for not helping my dad's wife because I'm pissed about the trouble she brought into our lives. My dad got married 5 years ago. I, 17M, had my whole world turned upside down by it because he married someone who had a really bitter ex and she has kids, 7, 9 and 10, with him. Her ex smashed our downstairs windows, which we can't prove, but he attacked my dad, which he served 6 months for, used to sit outside the house for hours and he'd say threatening shit or he'd insult me and my dad and dad's wife. The police were in and out of the house a lot and they were called on him a lot by my dad and his wife. I couldn't have friends over during the worst of that stuff. I couldn't leave the house without my dad. I couldn't even go to my mom's grave in case the ex followed. There were times her ex started shit and I was asked to basically comfort the kids because they wanted to see their dad and hug him, but my dad's wife wanted them kept away. He had them 50% of the time and those times were way different. I liked it way better when they weren't here, but dad's wife was fighting for custody. A lot of legal stuff happened. A lot of stuff was said. The ex showed up and stalked us pretty often. It was stressful and intense, and my dad pulled me from all my extracurriculars after a while because he wanted me to be safe. I resented him for putting me through it, but I also resented his wife for letting others' lives get fucked up because of her ex. She was just some woman and dad put being with her over my safety, since he was so worried about it. And she would say how glad she was that she and the kids had a better family, and yet she didn't mind fucking up our lives. We had a few more incidents with shit getting destroyed and security cameras not getting a face or a good luck at the person doing it. It got real bad for that stuff when my dad's wife was given primary custody and her ex every other weekend. It eventually got a little better. There's still toxic shit with my dad's wife and her ex. But my dad and his wife act like everything's perfect and we're some happy family. I wish my dad never met his wife. I don't like her and I can't wait to turn 18 and no longer deal with any of the ex bullshit. I have a job which I can't work late at because we still have to take precautions because of the ex, and I get to do what I want again, with some added restrictions. My dad knows most of how I feel, but I never let it all out there. But he knows. He can feel it. But his wife really believed we were a real family. Last weekend she asked me to ask for a different shift at work so I could help her out with an errand. She wanted to pick up some DIY stuff and wanted my help lifting/carrying. I told her I wouldn't do it. She said she thought it'd be fun, and since I like DIY stuff she thought I'd be willing to help. I told her I wasn't and she wanted to know why, and I let her know that she brought nothing but trouble into my life and I didn't want to help her. She took it hard and my dad looked upset too after she told him. She asked me if I really hated her for her ex's actions. I told her she didn't care about the trouble she brought into my life, so why would I care if she was otherwise the victim? I told her she selfishly brought other people into her mess. Later in the week my dad asked me if I'd be willing to help her another time and I said no. He told me he was disappointed that I resented them finding each other and building a life together. He said he thought our new family was worth it and he'd hoped I'd feel the same. I told him I didn't and I said he wasn't blameless either. Aita. Stories number 28. I brought home a new kitten from the animal shelter. My husband wasn't pleased. "Hi, honey," I said, holding up the tiny tabby kitten, "meet Cheez-It." My husband, Tom, shooed away one of our other cats as he pulled off his work boots. "Jesus, Claire," he whined, "another one." "You should have seen him at the shelter," I explained. He was saying, "Take me home." With an exasperated sigh, Tom grabbed a beer from the refrigerator. "Whatever," he said, "just come get me when supper's ready." Tom retreated to the bedroom, the only place he could be alone. I gently stroked Cheez-It's chin, his new brothers and sisters curiously sniffing at my legs. I'd hoped this time would be different. You could say I come from a long line of crazy cat ladies. There was Tootsie and Muffin and Mr. Beans, with baby Cheez-It being the newest addition to our little family. I'd hoped they'd make Tom happy one day, like they did for me, but that day seemed a long way off. We ate in silence, Tom's scowl growing grimmer with each hungry meow that rang out from beneath the table. "What's the matter?" I asked. "Nothing," he grunted, angrily spearing a chunk of salmon with his fork. He was a bad liar. "I'm sorry I didn't tell you," I began, but he looked like he needed a fam. "They aren't family," Tom spat, forcefully, his eyes glued to his plate, "and you know it." For a moment, I was too taken aback to speak. Tom had always wanted to be a father, but when he'd recently brought up the idea of children, I was forced to let him down. "I told you," I said, my voice trembling, "I can't have kids." "Am I not good enough?" he asked, rising to his feet. "Who is?" "It's complicated," I replied, weakly. "Who needs a baby?" he shouted, seething as Cheez-It playfully sniffed his shoe, "when you have these things." Tom violently kicked out as he turned for the door, the others hissing in fright as Cheez-It careened into a wall. I cradled him, sobbing as he howled with the pain of a shattered leg. When I returned from the emergency vet a few hours later, I'd made up my mind. Tom staggered and drunk at about 1 a.m., collapsing onto the sofa as if nothing had happened. "Hello, Tom," I whispered from behind, seductively. "What do you want, Claire?" he groaned. "Is it about the fucking cat?" "No," I cooed, "I want to show you something." He turned to look at me, and he screamed. I overpowered him, my claws pricking his throat in rivulets of blood. He sputtered incomprehensibly on the floor as my children gathered around to lap up the ichor. "Bite him," snarled Mr. Beans. "Tear him," yowled Tootsie and Muffin. "Break his bones," squeaked Cheez-It, bandaged in his carrier. Tom could only stare, slack-jawed, as my mouth began elongating into a feline muzzle. "What's the matter, honey?" I hissed, my yellow eyes burning into his. Cat got your tongue. Stories number 29. Ida, I changed my mind about my order at Auntie Anne's, but my husband insisted I still get it, and when I didn't he argued and stormed off. My husband and I went to the mall to pick up his suit from the tailor. As we were walking, we passed by Auntie Anne's and decided to grab a quick snack. As we approached, I mentioned that I wouldn't mind having some hot dog pretzel bites, while he decided on the cinnamon bites. When we reached the cashier to place our order, they informed us that they were out of hot dog pretzel bites and that the next batch would be ready in about 10 minutes. My husband placed his order and asked if I still wanted the hot dog bites. I told him I'd decide after we visited the next store and that he could go ahead with his order. Despite that, he insisted on adding the hot dog bites anyway, arguing that it was just a 10-minute wait. He then told the cashier to include them in the order. I reiterated that I wanted to wait and asked the cashier to remove them. Instead of doing so immediately, she looked to my husband for confirmation. He continued to insist I get them, but I looked him in the eye and firmly said, I do not want them anymore. Then, I turned to the cashier and repeated, I asked you to please remove them from the order. At that point, she finally did. After we paid, my husband told me I had embarrassed him, called me childish, and berated me before storming off for 30 minutes, leaving me standing there. All because I didn't want to pay for something I wasn't sure I wanted anymore. Stories number 30. It's my birthday today and no one cares. Today I turned 30. Nobody cares. I had a huge fight with my mom yesterday about her support of the orange man. She's turned into an extremist and I can't deal with it anymore. So she's kicking us out of the house we've lived in for 10 years. And today is my birthday. No one has told me happy birthday. Not even my partner of 10 years. Not my son, not my brother. It's like no one cares about me. I have never felt like anyone cared about me. Ever. Not in a way that's meaningful. I feel like I could die and they wouldn't notice. My parents never gave a shit what I was doing when I was growing up and then for some reason had the nerve to be surprised I started getting into trouble. I just hate my life. I hate being a mom. I hate being treated like a servant no matter how many times I try to teach my kid how to do things for himself, he won't. I hate never getting to do anything for myself. I hate never having any time to myself. I hate having a partner who can't even remember what my favorite things are. I hate this world. I hate being alive. I don't want to be here anymore. Stories number 31. AIO for breaking up with my BF for visiting his ex. Background, my boyfriend, 28M, and I, 27M, have been together for 3 years. I'm in my last year of law school and we had plans to move after my graduation. My BF is still figuring things out and currently lives with his parents about 1 hour away. He hates it at home and says his parents are super controlling. We've been doing this mini long distance for 3 years and it's been rough for both of us. My BF texted me on Wednesday and told me that he wouldn't come to my place this weekend because he had plans. This was weird because we had discussed our weekend plans on Sunday and I already got us tickets to 2 events. He told me that he purchased tickets to Universal Studios and wanted to do something nice for himself. He said he wanted to feel independent. I explained to him how weird this was for him to suddenly inform me of considering we live 4 hours from the theme parks. And asked when he booked the tickets. He said he booked the tickets about a month ago after an argument we had. During that time, my grandmother had passed, my post-grad job offer was in limbo because of the hiring freeze, and I found out I couldn't attend my grandmother's funeral due to familial issues. My BF didn't call me for an entire week during this time because he claims he didn't know what to say and said he thought I was mad at him. I was the one to break the awkwardness by calling him first. Anyway, I asked if any of his friends would be joining him at Universal. He said that his ex may be joining. This later turned into a definite yes that his ex would be joining. They would be staying at the same hotel but according to him they wouldn't be in the same room. He's friendly with his ex and they play games and Discord a lot, but he's always been secretive about it which I've always thought was strange. Additionally, his mom bought him the hotel room because he's financially strapped. She's been encouraging him to do this trip. Needless to say, I cried and explained to him how uncomfortable this would make me. He told me that I always go on trips without him so this was his turn. The thing is, I always invite him when I go places and wait for him to turn me down. If I could have it my way, I'd bring him with me everywhere. Additionally, he loves theme parks so the thought of him visiting his favorite place and inviting his ex and not me during a time where I was grieving just sucks. We spent hours talking on the phone with no resolution, he was adamant on going. I've been cheated on in a very similar situation in the past and he knows this. He disregarded my feelings and said things would be fine. I tried sleeping on it but I felt like I was going crazy. So I texted him and broke up with him and blocked him. AIO. TLDR, my BF got tickets to a theme park with his ex during a time I was going through a lot. He didn't tell me about this until 2 days before his trip and claimed he just wanted to do something nice for himself. I ended up breaking up with him over this AIO. Stories number 32. Wife threw a filled glass bottle at 4.5 years old son which hit him on the nose and he ended up getting a 2 centimeters cut on nose and 4 stitches. My wife was angry with 1-year-old daughter for crying and I guess having a hectic day. My 4.5 years old son was playing on sofa while I was working on table beside. My wife made a milk glass bottle for him and swung at him from across the room while son was distracted with playing. It hit him on the nose and gave a 2 centimeters and pretty deep cut. Of course blood came rushing out. I rushed him to ER and got him patched up. But I am so angry at my wife that I feel it in my ears. My son is the sweetest little thing who does what we say and has never been a problem. Which makes me even angrier that she did that to him. I guess she didn't mean to hit him like that, but still it is so careless and it makes me question if she can protect the kids. If anger can control her actions so much so that she would fling a heavy bottle at the son, then what can happen in future? I don't know how to handle this. Whenever I see my son's face, I get so sad that I want to cry that he probably will have to live with a scar. I also get angry at my wife for doing this to him. What should I do? Edit, I feel like I should add, I don't think she intentionally wanted to hurt him or something. She didn't expect it to hit him I think. However she also didn't give any heads up at all. She has never done this before. She has expressed verbal anger at many occasions but it never led to physical hurt until now. She has also been crying and is remorseful. I haven't yet talked calmly to her. It's just that when I see her I can see the look on my boy's face when he was bleeding from his nose and it makes me angry yet again and I can't seem to control it. Stories number 33. My kid came out as gay, and his brother is being homophobic. So a little background. I have 3 kids. I have a 10F, 13M, and 14M. My 13-year-old has recently came out as gay, and I've been nothing but supportive, alongside my husband. The issue is with our older son. He has been extremely homophobic, and just mean. I've thought I raised my kids better than this, but apparently I've went wrong somewhere. We live in a 3-bedroom home, and the 2 oldest boys share a room, and my daughter has her own room. Ever since my son has came out my oldest son has been sleeping on the couch, saying he's not gonna sleep in the same room. He's also has been telling my son's friends who are literally just friends homophobic things calling them gay, and making them uncomfortable to even be over at my house. It's gotten to the point where last week he beat up his younger brother for changing his shirt in front of him. Literally just a shirt. I'm at a loss of what to do. He's even been bullying his own brother at school. Prior to him coming out they got along great, they were basically best friends. Stories number 34. How do you cope when he lied about marriage for 10 years? I found this sub recently and finally, I feel like I have a place/community to voice the thoughts and concerns on my mind. My friends and family don't really understand. I've been together with my partner, mid-30s M+F, close to a decade. We are technically engaged, but the marriage talk never caught any wind. I was proactive, agreed to a prenup, bought a dress, agreed to have a low-key courthouse ceremony with no one there etc. Sheepishly enough, even printed out the paperwork needed to get married. I cried, I brought it up. Nothing. We checked out some rings casually but he cut it short and never followed up on it. Yet, he always said he wanted to marry me. He talked me out of taking a job in another state because we'd marry and have kids. Now that is my fault for believing him, but recently a huge argument broke out. We own a house together, and he wanted me to pay him since he put down more cash. It's a lot of money that I honestly don't have. He wants us to put it in writing that I owe him money. When I asked if that could be included in our prenup, he just got more angry. And suddenly I realized that he isn't going to marry me. I've asked him so many times over the years if he just doesn't want to marry and he never replied anything. I was dumb. To make it even worse, he broke me down during these years. He's made fun of my job, every body part one have, my looks. I can't drive, I don't clean enough, I don't make enough money. Stories number 35. I, 36M, was berated by my GF, 38F, because I wasn't ready to get married after 3 weeks of dating. I met a pretty rave girl at a Darren Styles show and fell head over heels with her. 2 weeks later, after texting, we had our first date on January 3rd, 25, and the vibes and connection were solidified. From that day on, we were together every hour, outside work, for almost 3 weeks. We lived 20 minutes apart, so we took turns staying over at each other's places, and I would drive her to work. She didn't have a car each morning, so she didn't have to take the trolley. I've been single for the past 2 years, and my last relationships lasted 5 and 8 years, respectively. I was cheated on both times, so it's tough for me to trust someone again and be vulnerable. However, with her, I believed she was my ride or die because of our deep conversations about our values and goals in life. We even came up with cute nicknames for each other. I was so happy when we agreed to make our relationship official together. We both shared our darkest secrets and trauma with each other. I told her things that no one else knew. Was fully committed. Wanted her more than anything. My love language is gift-giving and acts of service, so I would cook for us, grocery shop, pay for food/dinner/drinks, Uber us to events, and even installed a bidet at her apartment. She met my friends and said they were amazing compared to her past friend groups. She was shocked to see how our friends would spend time together without having to get fucked up on drugs be the primary reason to hang out together. One night, we were drinking and watching TV, and the conversation shifted to our commitment and how dedicated I was to her. So she said, "We should get married now." It wasn't jokingly or cutesy. It was dead-ass serious. I was taken aback because I care about this person, but we only just met, and it's too early even to consider that. I did my best to say, "No, I'm not ready yet, and I'm not going to say yes to something that I don't feel comfortable saying." So, because I was trying to avoid the situation, it was perceived as, "I don't want to." But she repeatedly said, "We should get married, why won't you marry me?" This was when I was berated and called condescending names because I didn't say what she wanted to hear. We woke up the following day, and after reminiscing about how much fun we had last night, I told her she called me some pretty hurtful things. She laughed and said, "Sorry, I didn't mean to." I have thick skin, so I brushed it off and gave her the benefit of the doubt. But a week later, it happened again, the same situation. We were drinking and having a great night, but she started saying, "We should get married," again, and I reacted the same way. I told her, "No, I'm not ready yet." She fell asleep, and I silently left in the early morning. Once I got home, I texted her, saying, "I can't be with someone that berates me. I know my worth and won't let myself be abused again." Her reply was, "Oh no, I'm so sorry. I understand where you're coming from. I know I can get very ugly sometimes, and it's my flaw, but I know I didn't mean anything towards you." We had plans that morning to meet my friends and have a picnic at the park, but instead, I spent hours crying in bed. Eventually, I got up and met my friends at the park, where I told them everything. 6 hours after her last text, she texted me a sad, frowny face emoji. I told her I'd call her later. That night, we had an hour and 20-minute long phone call. During it, I probably talked for a combined 15 minutes. The main takeaway from the conversation was that she was sorry, but it was my fault since I bought the cider, and I should have known better because she's 5 feet 6 inches, 110 pounds, and I'm 6 feet 2 inches, 175 pounds, and that it was too high of alcohol content. I was also emasculated because of my actions since I was vocal about my feelings and emotions. I tried to express the need for boundaries, since we are both in therapy, and she replied that boundaries are for animals and cattle. The conversation went from bad to worse. I couldn't believe my ears. There was no accountability for her actions or any remorse. The thing she said that I can't get out of my head is how she used my past trauma, the things I told her in confidence, to justify how my actions are irrational and that because I was hurt in the past, I shouldn't be so weak, and it's not like she was physically abusing me like my exes. It's been 5 days, and I haven't received a text or call from her. I've been a complete wreck. I can't eat, sleep, or do anything without thinking about her. I would have given her the world. We talked about traveling together and going to festivals. I told her about all the cute dates I had planned. I would have done anything for her because she is precisely who I envision myself being with, but it feels like I'm just another doormat to her. I've been struggling to process everything that's happened. I cared deeply about her and really believed in what we were building. Did I overreact by something she said while she was drunk? Should I text her or just walk away? Update. TLDR, I tried to rekindle a relationship with my GF despite warnings from others. At first, things seemed optimistic, but issues quickly surfaced, including excessive drinking, her getting assaulted at a bar, and other erratic behavior. The relationship became increasingly volatile, with emotional outbursts, accusations, and manic mood swings. The breaking point came when she said she couldn't handle my frequent travel. She initiated a breakup but later lashed out when I didn't attempt to reconcile. This escalated into her harassing me with excessive calls, hurtful texts, threats, and personal attacks. I should have listened to everyone, but I didn't. I handwrote her a letter telling her how much I cared about us and wanted to give us another chance. She texted me later that day, saying she felt the same way and was sorry for everything. We meet up for dinner. I brought her flowers, and we talked for a long time about what happened. She was apologetic, took accountability, and reassured me it wouldn't happen again. I stayed the night, and we made up for lost time. The next day, I took her to work in the morning. We made plans to have dinner later that night, so I went to the store and picked up steak, potatoes, and an expensive bottle of bourbon. I picked her up from work, and we returned to my house, where I cooked everything. We put on a movie, finished the bottle, and stay up late into the morning. It was such a nice night. The next night, we had tickets to see Gamma. I was so excited. We dress up and go to the club. I picked up some beer so we could pre-game. We get to the club around 11:30 p.m., and she buys some shots. We're dancing, goofing around, having fun. She buys a few more shots. We end up leaving around 1:45 a.m. She then wants to go to a bar, but everything is about to close. I follow her across the street to a bar, where she orders 2 more shots. They tell us it's last call and we'll need to be quick. I could tell something was off, so I told her I would wait for her outside. 3 minutes later, I see the front door swing open, and security pushes her out of the bar. She is yelling, causing a scene, and then gets in someone's face. The guy punches her in the head. At that point, I rush over and try to de-escalate the situation. We flag down a cop and explain what happened and who assaulted her. The cop took down the information, but then another call came in, and he left in a hurry. We took an Uber back to her place, and her friends came over. We told them what had happened. I was in shock. I couldn't believe she got punched in the face. None of that had to happen. We didn't have to go to the bar, we didn't have to take more shots, she didn't have to mouth off to security when they were asking everyone to leave, she didn't have to get in some random guy's face. This was the first time I think I really saw her true self, a self that is so angry and mean. I should have ended things there, but I didn't. On Monday night, we meet up with my 2 friends at a local brewery to play some pool. We have a few drinks and play a few games. Then we go to a pizza spot for some slices and beer. We were all talking and making jokes, but she would laugh so loud it was deafening. I could see everyone looking at us like we were the loud, obnoxious table. I felt so uncomfortable. We then leave and head back to my house. She tries to offer my friends a vape, but they politely decline. She keeps asking and putting it up to their mouths, asking them to take a hit. At that point, I said, "Hey, can you please not do that?" They already said no. She then got super quiet. My friends felt the vibe in the room change, so they left. I didn't know at the time, but this triggered her. That I said she should stop pressuring my friends to smoke. We watch a movie and try to enjoy the rest of the night. However, during the movie, she would go from laughing to crying, yelling at me, and kissing me. I couldn't understand what was going on and why she was acting like this. We didn't even drink this much, she wasn't blacked out. I think whatever medication she's on shouldn't be mixed with alcohol because she was so manic, and then everything started to make sense. The following day, it seemed like everything was okay, but little did I know it wasn't. I was working from home, and she was keeping me company on the couch when, out of nowhere, she got up and said, "I want to go home, I can't be here." I ask what's wrong, and she says, I triggered her when I stepped up to her and said she should stop offering my friends to smoke. She said she felt embarrassed. She then told me that I was only in this relationship because of the sex and that I didn't care about her. I told her this was wrong and told her everything I do for her: cook, clean, drive, pay, give, provide, and that seemed to make her realize how much I care about her. That night, I had dinner plans with my parents, so I dropped her off at her place and went to eat. Afterward, I texted her, asking if she wanted to hang out. It was late, but I just wanted to see her, so I drove over, and we watched a little TV, where we both dozed off on the couch. It is now Wednesday, and we did have plans to get wings and wine after work, but my buddies ended up canceling, so when I texted her about it, she was upset. I didn't let her know sooner, otherwise, she would have made plans with her friends. I apologized and told her I had just found out myself. I told her as soon as I knew. She said, "Something is off, I'm not dumb. I know how you can be when something is not going your way. I don't like it when people assume things, so I told her I would stay home and have a chill night in." She texted, "Good night, I love you," at 11 p.m. I replied the same. I text her in the morning, thinking about her and wishing her a nice day. I didn't text her throughout the day because I was legitimately busy, so she called me at 7 p.m. We talked for a bit, and she wondered why I didn't text her all day. I explained everything that was going on. We get off the phone and keep texting. She asked me when my next trip was, and I told her it was actually on Monday. I fly out to Seattle for 2 days. She knows I travel. On our first date, I told her how, in 2024, I went to 6 countries and more than 11 festivals. She then says that she doesn't do long-distance relationships and that her ex would travel for work all the time, so she left him because he was never around. I tell her how committed I am and that I'm not like her ex. She said she was looking for something different and thought she could handle my traveling, but it turns out she couldn't. I told her it sounded like I was not the right person for her. She said she thinks so, too, and that she knows what she wants and deserves. I told her she deserved the world and was sorry I couldn't give it to her. She then calls me out for stonewalling and being non-communicative and avoidant. Then, she proceeds to say she sees me as toxic and wants to end this before it gets worse. I told her I respected her decision and that all I wanted to do was make her happy. She calls me a wonderful person but can't justify staying with me because she wants to settle down with someone. I replied with, I understand, and that was the last thing I texted. I figured it was over, she broke up with me, and nothing else was left to say or do. I was so wrong because things went from bad to a full-on shitstorm. She texted me yesterday at noon saying how she thinks it's so rude of me to be dismissive that I didn't try to reconcile and that I gave up so easily. If I had cared about her, I would have tried to communicate better. I don't say anything back. She then starts blowing up my phone. I have at least 18 missed calls. She's texting me the most hurtful things. Accused me of cheating. She called me toxic. Threatening me and saying she'll get me for fucking with her emotions. Brought up my past trauma. She called me an emotional abuser. Emasculated me again, said I should get a sex change since I'm such a woman, and sent me a link to a clinic that does operations. Then she sends me screenshots of guys that she's talking to and how they want to take her out for Valentine's Day. Then makes fun of my dick and said I didn't satisfy her. That's when I blocked her. Stories number 36. My husband, 34M, changed his mind about his career plans after I, 28F, signed a 3-year job contract. Now he wants a divorce. I, 28F, honestly don't know what to do. My husband, 34M, and I have been in a long-distance marriage for 2 years now. I'm in one state studying, and he's working in another. Neither of us could leave until now. I'm also on a visa, meaning I need a job that will sponsor me, and my contract has to be at least 3 years long. He wants to apply to a highly competitive program that lasts 2 to 3 years, and there are only a few spots in the country. I completely understand how tough it is, which is why I've been asking him for almost a year to decide where he wants to apply so I can find a job near that location. After a lot of discussion, I got a great job offer in City A, but he didn't like it. So, we finally agreed on City B, and I signed a 3-year contract, visa sponsorship and all. Now, 3 days ago, he tells me he actually wants to apply to a program in City A. This means we'd be long distance for the next 3 years. That also means no possibility of having kids anytime soon because my job is demanding, and I wouldn't be raising them alone while he's in another city. I'm completely baffled and disappointed. I spent a year trying to make a plan together, adjusted my career path to stay with him, and now he's changing everything last minute. We had a huge fight, and now he's saying he wants a divorce because I'm not supportive enough and that I'm too stressed and picking fights. I feel like I've done everything I can to compromise and be a team player, but now I'm just lost. Am I really being unsupportive? Or is this as unfair as it feels? Stories number 37. Aita for not wanting to do anything for my ex's unborn child. I, 24M, have a son, 5, with my ex Haley, 24F. We broke up 3 years ago and we share custody of our son. Our relationship was bad before we broke up. I could never do anything right. Haley wanted to stay home with our son, so I worked extra hard to provide for us, but then she accused me of trying to keep her at home all the time by staying at work so late. If I took our son for the day, she'd accuse me of trying to come between them. But then if I spent time with him on and off throughout the day, she'd accuse me of not being involved enough. She didn't like my cooking but complained when I didn't make more food. She also pissy when I'd make a packed lunch for her and when I made one just for me. She'd get pissy with me if I didn't want her to go out with her friends if I had work in the morning. She told me a single parent would deal with work and getting up with a kid so I could. But if she wanted to go somewhere in the morning, I better make sure I was there and waking up. It didn't matter that I was working crazy long hours so she didn't have to work. She told me to be a real man. She also hated that I wouldn't spend time with her family, but she always made shit up to them so they hated me. Like I could be feeding our son or playing with him and I was such an asshole for taking the baby from his mom according to the family. Or because I was playing with our son I was a lazy bum who never worked and wanted their poor daughter/sister to work. I broke up with her because it wasn't healthy and only got worse. Her family told me they were glad she was finally done with a piece of shit like me and she could do so much better. A few months after we broke up she started dating this other guy. Then she wanted me out of our son's life and she tried to file for sole custody stating I didn't deserve to be a dad and I wasn't a good one. Her family all said I had poor character and would not be a good influence on my son. The judge told them she should have chosen a different father then and our son had the right to a relationship with me. 50-50 was maintained. My ex had her boyfriend threaten me twice and I reported him to the cops both times which got him a pretty strong warning the second time since I recorded him at my door. They broke up 7 months ago because my ex is pregnant and he doesn't want a kid. For the past month she's been asking me to take her son on as my own. She sent me scanned photos. She sent me a photo of our son in a Big Brother to be shirt. She sent baby photos of our son saying her son could be a mini version of him and how he deserves a dad like our son has. She told me it would be cruel to have one with a dad and the other rejected by his. Especially when it's the baby being rejected. I told her I wasn't going to raise her son and tie myself to her more. I told her she needs to find someone who'll be good to both of the boys and focus on that or just be a good mom and trust her son will be fine without a dad. Her family tried to convince me but whenever I see them and they try this I ignore them and walk on without acknowledging them. The change since I was the worst influence ever when it was our son is startling. The other night my ex called me at 3 a.m. and I freaked out thinking something was wrong with our son, but instead she was crying and worrying about her son and saying he needs me. I made it clear I'm not doing anything for her second child and she's on her own with him. I told her he will never be my son or my family and she needs to let it go. Ever since that call her texts are angry instead of pleading and we're back to me being the worst. Aita for my stance. Stories number 38. I'm on the verge of leaving my BF of 5 years because of his mom. My partner, 26M, and I, 23F, have been together for 5 years. We used to rent a beautiful property together until we decided to move into his mom's house so we could save money to buy our own home. It was my partner's idea to move and I was hesitant from the start. Due to upbringing I have never been and likely never will be comfortable living in another person's home. I was raised to be independent and not rely on others, though I've been able to work through that when it comes to my partner. Regardless, I agreed to move as I didn't want to feel as though my reluctance was holding us back, and he was right, we have saved a lot of money being here. Within the first week of living there I had come to realize that she is quite frankly, a complete fucking psycho and extremely manipulative. She is very religious and from a completely different culture to me making it difficult for me due to the different styles of living, cooking beliefs etc. She has said to me several times that I belong to their family now therefore I don't need to see my family and the house I live in should be my priority. She insists I don't and can't cook at all because I don't know a lot of their cultural dishes, I have been forced to learn them every weekend for the past year. Everything my partner does that she doesn't like is my fault in her eyes, if he does/says something she doesn't like or if he is ever angry for whatever reason it automatically is my fault and she becomes upset with me or stops talking to me for a while. Every conversation we have seems to turn into a lecture on why I should pray and be religious and why her culture/religion is far superior than others as well as complaint about my culture and asking me, why do your people do this? If they were more like us they wouldn't suffer. Needless to say I've hated being here since day one and I honestly don't think I can do this anymore. I love my partner so much but I can't stand his mother and I struggle to see our relationship working when he isn't willing to speak up for me. I've tried talking to him, telling him I don't feel supported by him and every time it seems like he understands until it happens the next time and nothing is said because as he says it's easier for us to keep the peace until we move out. The thing is we're in a position where we can buy our own home now and we're currently looking at houses but I can't seem to get it out of my head that nothing's really going to change. She'll still expect us to come around and do her chores, she'll always tell me I need to do more him and always tell him I should be doing more no matter how much I do, I'll still hate being around her, I'll always have to put up with her racist remarks and lectures. My partner will continue not saying anything and everything will always be my fault. I love him, I don't want to leave him, but I don't think I can live like this forever. Stories number 39. To full falling for an Aussie and planning to move my life across the world only to be dumped 3 weeks before my flight. Okay so I'm 25F and I'm an absolute idiot I don't care what to say to be honest. I feel in love with this Australian guy back in 2017 immediately beasties. We did date for a bit but then ended it because the distance was hard and we were still practically teens, 18 and 19 at the time. After a couple years we reconnected and kind of rekindled what we once had. I flew out to visit him in person back in 2022 then he flew me out to visit him again last year. Both times I felt so at home and happy like I met my forever person. Immediately after my last visit I applied for a work and holiday visa to move there. His parents were happily willing to let me stay with them. And my partner spent every day telling me how excited he was and how he can't wait to spend the rest of his life with me. Literally 3 weeks before I fly out he drops a bombshell out of nowhere that he's not ready for commitment. I'm utterly devastated but also extremely enraged since I sent most of my stuff to his house already and quit my job over 2 weeks ago. I invested so much time, energy and money into this move and all of a sudden I have to scramble to make a new game plan. I absolutely don't want to back out of moving since the current state of the US is scaring the living crap out of me. Anyways, I'm now moving to Melbourne or somewhere rural in Victoria so I can just throw myself into working and distract myself for the next few years till I come up with a new life plan. But fuck, I'm scared now that I'm going to do all this alone. Haha, I don't care if anyone from Melbourne or just Victoria wanna have a new bestie meal. I feel so numb and lost. Anyways, I just wanted to get this off my chest since I'm so distraught right now. TLDR, my long-distance partner dumped me 3 weeks before my move date and I'm scrambling to figure out a new life plan for myself while navigating heartbreak. Stories number 40. Wife cheated and I can't get over it, need support. As title says. My wife cheated on me. We aren't together anymore. Haven't been in just over 3 weeks. I just don't understand why she's treated me like this. Right before cheating she was planning our future. Literally the week before. Now she cheated and treats me like complete trash when I found out. I've made mistakes in our relationship but nowhere near the level she has. She's physically hit me to the point of bleeding before. She made me pick her or my family. I literally cut my mom off for months because her, and when I did talk to my mom she would be pissed and throw a huge fit if I talked to my mom without her. She put me in 20k of debt. She honestly was never there for me. When my friend died she wouldn't talk to me and made me make her feel better because she was fighting with her boss at work. After all this I get left and cheated on. I would have done anything for her acceptance. She has no remorse or anything for cheating on me. She acts like I deserved it. Like I wronged her. I'm so sick. I'm struggling so bad. The thought of her with someone else still makes me sick. I don't know what I've done to deserve this. I'm so on edge I can hardly get through a day of work. My self-worth is zero. If I had any worth, how would someone treat me like this after everything I've done for her? She's told me I made her life better in every way. Now she tells me I made it better but not in any way that matters. I'm struggling bad. Stories number 41. To fool by calling a wellness check on my wife. She just had a really bad day today. I can normally get her through it. There have been many times my alarm bells are screaming make the call but I get her through it. This time I had to call. The responders took my contact information and told me they would call me. The first questions out of my mouth were, where are you taking her and when can I see her? They tell men the hospital, but the officers stated there are no visitation for a 72-hour hold. Waited all night, no call. Suddenly I see a missed call alert from my wife. She's calling from a clinic. She doesn't have her medications. I rush over and get greeted by the biggest hatchet wound cunt of a woman refusing to let me see her, pass a message to her, leave her medicine behind the counter to give her, nothing. She says I need a code to verify. Verify that I know my wife. She takes my contact info and tells me I'll get a call with this bullshit code. It's been 2 hours. I start googling the clinic they took her to and it's all nightmare fuel reviews. They never advised me they moved her. I didn't have a choice as to the appropriate clinic that actually gives a shit. And after all this, then fucking what? Nothing's changed. She's coming back home to the life she tried to get out of. Only now she has this traumatic event she just went through. TLDR, my wife is alone and suffering in a hellhole inpatient clinic and hates me and it's all my fault. I don't know what to do. Stories number 42. Aita for telling my husband that I don't want another child with him. I, 34F, have been married to my husband, 37M, for almost 10 years. We've been together for 15 years. We have one daughter, 3, through IVF. We have had plenty of ups and downs during our relationship. When he gets mad he will call me a bunch of names. Before we got engaged, I've sought out emotional comfort from others but nothing physical. This has been over 10 years ago and nothing since. When we fight, he will bring this up occasionally. Which isn't the main point of this post, just want transparent. I have ADHD and forget a lot of things. The main thing I forget is to make sure I shut the lights off when I leave the room. It's not like I leave them on all day, but when I'm moving from room to room sometimes I forget to shut a light off. My husband has asked me to do this for years and I try to remember to shut them off but occasionally I forget. I've made a lot of progress with it but he still gets frustrated. I had breast cancer a few years ago and the medications I take cause a lot of side effects. I get a lot of brain fog, so now I forget even more. But it also caused me to have precancerous cells in my uterus and I had to have a full hysterectomy with removal of my ovaries. My husband was raised with an old school mindset. Women do the cooking and cleaning. Now he does all of the outside work. And helps occasionally in the house, mainly by pushing out daughter's toys to the side and hits start on the Roomba. I work full-time then come home to cook and clean. Then I get our daughter ready for bed and she wants to cuddle until she falls asleep. When I come out, nothing is cleaned, and he is sitting on the couch. He will fall asleep a lot after work and won't even come out until I'm trying to get our daughter ready for bed. I've been asking for help around the house and he just doesn't. I'm asking for help with cooking, getting things cleaned up in the kitchen, getting our daughter ready for bed, etc. I'm asking for us to take turns on doing different things. He says he will do the dishes, so I go to bed and nothing is done when I wake up. I've also had issues with him throwing fits about not wanting to see my family etc. We just had a large fight and he told me he purposely doesn't help because he is tired of telling me to turn the lights off. That all the years of him asking me to turn the lights off isn't compared to me asking for help around the house. I'm becoming very resentful because of this. He recently brought up on wanting to look into surrogacy to have another child. I told him that I'm not sure if I even want another child with him because he doesn't help me. Now he tells me that I really hurt him and that there are plenty of other moms out there that can do it all with more than one child. Aita for saying this to him and did I overreacted about him not helping me? Edit I didn't expect so many responses thank you for your input. I do want to add that my husband is an amazing father. He does a lot of play time with her as well. He doesn't have a mean bone in his body to her. She does choose me for comfort, which is because I do majority of everything. He wants her to go to him for comfort but I've explained to him it's because he doesn't do anything else with her. Stories number 43. Husband and I are on the path to divorce. For those who have been there, what do you wish someone had told you when you were in that space between deciding to divorce and telling other people about it? My husband and I are in our early 40s, have 6 and 8-year-old daughters, together for 18 years, married for 10. I am finally out of the fog of self-delusion that comes with being unwilling and unable to confront the fact that I married an emotionally abusive adulterer, and have realized that we are both emotionally damaged and need to repair ourselves to work as a couple. I know what I need to do for me, which includes not being with an abuser who is unwilling or unable to change. I finally gave myself permission to make the decision to divorce today. I told my parents and my sister. Unless my husband told his people, they are the only ones who know so far. We need to figure out the logistics, which includes telling our kids. We're at least in agreement that we will always prioritize their well-being. Other than that, this is new territory, so my question and request to you is, if you've been in my shoes, what do you wish someone had told you back then? Stories number 44. Aita for calling out my aunt for lying about having a condition that I actually struggle with. So some background, this aunt has a habit of copying everything anyone does and treats it like a competition. This also applies to illnesses. You mentioned getting ill. She is sick a day later and she always feels worse than you. Then acts like she never knew you were sick. 6 months ago I was diagnosed with an autoimmune disease that doctors think I have been dealing with for years. The only reason they found it is because it very quickly got worse and has ruined my life. It won't shorten it, but I am in so much pain that I can't even walk to the store that is right next to my flat without feeling extreme pain and discomfort. My sleep is awful, my social life has become non-existent unless people come to my place. There is no cure for it, I'm on specific targeted medications to try and stop it getting worse. The best we can do is pain management at this point and I'm on the strongest painkillers I can have but it's still bad. When I was first diagnosed I posted about it on my FB, not in detail, just said what I had. The only person who knows the details is my mum. Yesterday mum picked me up so I could visit my nan. While we were there, aunt turned up. We were talking about random stuff at first but then she mentioned she went to the doctors and they diagnosed her with, condition I have, and they think she's had it for years. I thought she was lying so asked her some questions regarding it and every answer was BS. She claimed she told a doctor her symptoms and that's how they found it, when you need blood work done to find it. She claimed that they were looking into different procedures to cure it, which again, no cure. When I asked what meds she was on she said there wasn't any they could prescribe for it and she had paracetamol to deal with the terrible pain she was in. She then went on about how it's affecting her life, it's made things difficult for her. Yet she does martial arts 3 times a week and goes clubbing every weekend like she's a teen and posts about it on FB. I lost it. I just went off about how full of it she was and that pretending to have something so serious when I was actually going through it was pathetic attention-seeking behavior. I pointed out everything she said that proved she was lying and said the only medical help she needed was for her head as she clearly had issues. She tried to double down and say that she never knew I had it, she saw my FB post, she thought I would be more sympathetic as I know what she's going through etc. At this point I was so mad that my mum drove me home. My aunt then later posted on FB about her struggles and how some people just aren't sympathetic about this condition. I called her out in the comments of the post and mentioned what had happened earlier in the day, and a load of other families started calling her out for it, so she quickly deleted the post. However, my cousin, her daughter, is now calling me TA as my aunt is upset I called her out, so am I. Stories number 45. Aita for wanting to break up even though Valentine's Day is coming up. We've been together for 5 years, living together for 3. Long story short, we've been having issues in our relationship for the past few months. When we moved in together, we agreed to split rent and whatnot evenly. For background, we have very different financial habits. She tends to spend impulsively and wants to live in the moment. She got into a lot of debt from student loans and credit cards during college, partly from studying abroad, partly from partying, going to festivals, and traveling. Back in August, she spent an undisclosed, as in, she refused to tell me, amount of money going to a concert, which I advised against. We got into an argument about it, to which she basically said she's an adult and doesn't want me lecturing her about finances. Lo and behold, when October came around, she said she wasn't able to pay her part of the living expenses. The past few months, I've been paying the entire mortgage on my home. I worked during college, saved from my post-grad job, and bought a cheap townhouse. The place is entirely in my name. Besides finances, we are also running into some other issues. One being that she pretty much hates my paternal family. I could go into detail about it, but basically she got into a heated argument with my brother during the holidays, over something that was trivial. She also doesn't get along with my sister. Stories number 46. Why do they seem to downgrade? I'm not trying to be judgmental, but this is something I've noticed in my life. Even a few of my female friends went through the same. I'm early 30s female. I first started dating at 17. All of my ex-boyfriends basically ended the same way. They would be with me for 2 to 4 years while talking about marriage at some point, making promises, telling me how much they loved me and saw a future with me. Some even gave a range or deadline for proposal but never followed through. Half of them shared an apartment with me, so we did live together for a good while. The relationship would eventually end with either me ending it because I got tired of waiting or them suddenly ending it while apologizing and saying it has nothing to do with me. The relationships overall were healthy for the most part. While there were regular disagreements, there wasn't fighting. We weren't financially struggling either. I have no kids, so we weren't sleep deprived or busy with that. We even occasionally traveled together. This is the part one don't understand. Every single one of my exes who was hesitant to marry me basically rushed into marrying the next girl and self-sabotaged themselves by either knocking her up, going into extreme debt, ending up with the new wife under their parents' or in-laws' roofs because they're broke, working 2 jobs they hate because they got their new wives pregnant immediately. List goes on and on. On social media they'll complain how tired they are, how they haven't traveled in years, how they hate their job and looking for a new better one, venting to mutual friends about their lives, etc. During COVID-19, 2 of my exes, who married the next women after me, had the gall to reach out to me and beg me to financially help them, their wives and kids. I said no. For reference, I live independently, own a house, travel occasionally and am child-free. I can't understand why so many guys like to self-sabotage like this. Like I mentioned before, I even have a few female friends who this happened to. One of their stories actually stood out to me a lot. Her wishy-washy ex of 5 years left her, and within less than 2 years he apparently married an addict, had kids with the new wife and are struggling and always fighting. Why do men do this to themselves? Stories number 47. My father is refusing to sign my travel consent forms until my mom drops the assault charge against him. 4 months ago my dad threatened my mom with a knife. He was arrested and charged with assault with a weapon. There has been a no-contact order since then. I've already bought tickets for a vacation during spring break, but because I'm 16 I still need a letter signed by each parent saying I can leave the country alone. I texted my dad to ask him if he could sign the letter at a notary and he said he won't do anything until all charges are dropped. Is he allowed to make demands like this? Is there anything I can do so that only my mom's signature is needed? Right now there is no official custody agreement. Stories number 48. Aita for not helping a stranger's child in the restroom. I had posted in parenting, but they said it didn't belong there. My son and I, 37F, went to my nephew's birthday party at a skating rink today. Aside from my nephews there were 2 other parties going on. I went to the restroom and there was a little girl of about 7 who had had an accident and wet herself. She belonged to one of the other parties. We both got to the door about the same time. Her dad said that he didn't have her a change of clothes and told me to clean her up and watch her while he went to the nearby Walmart and bought new clothes and just walked away before I could answer. I had never met these people in my life. The little girl was so shy she wouldn't even tell me her name and she just walked into the stall. I could tell she was embarrassed. I told her to wait there and I'd go find some adults from the party that she knew and that I'd be back. I found the other adults that knew her and explained that she'd had an accident and they needed to go tend to her. I wasn't comfortable cleaning up a child I'd never met, who was clearly shy and embarrassed. The adults went to help, but acted like I was unreasonable for asking them, but I don't think I was. Stories number 49. Postmenopause, my partner treats me well but I want to leave. My partner and I have been together for 6 years and we are happy. He supported me through some serious health issues and we love each other. But I am constantly just wishing I lived alone. I purposely buy a cereal that he dislikes so that I can actually eat some. He decided to mix it with his cereal. He will not lift a finger when it comes to housework, his snoring wakes me up at least 3 times a night. If I am watching something he doesn't like, he makes fun of it or starts watching something on his phone with the volume up. Am I just being selfish? Is it just hormones? I have zero libido and just want some solitude. Stories number 50. My boyfriend, 27M, jerked off to leaked amateur porn and pictures of his old schoolmate. I, 30F, feel betrayed. My boyfriend, 27M, and I, 30F, have been together for a little over 2 years. At the beginning of our relationship, I told him my boundaries, and one of those boundaries was that I'm not okay with him watching OnlyFans content or leaked porn. Porn on sites like Pornhub is fine, as long as it doesn't affect our sex life. Yesterday, we were relaxing on the couch when he fell asleep. His phone was next to me, and I had this feeling that I should check it. Yes, I know I shouldn't have done it. I went through his recently opened apps, and when I opened the Notes app, I found about 10 links to leaked porn saved there. I woke him up, confronted him, and he lied at first. But later, he admitted that he had watched it and jerked off to it yesterday. I was furious because he had crossed my boundary. But it was 4 a.m., and I didn't want to argue, so I told him we would talk in the morning. Fast forward to this morning. I asked him why he did it, how long he had been doing this, and if he had more things hidden on his phone. He let me check, and when I opened the recently deleted photos, my heart sank. He had nudes, tits and ass pictures of his old schoolmate in his recently deleted folder. I asked him why he had those photos and if he had jerked off to them. He said yes. I told him I needed time to myself, so I left. How do I get over this and forgive him? TLDR, my boyfriend jerked off to leaked porn and pictures of his old classmate. He first lied about it and then confessed. Stories number 51. How do I, 31F, handle my husband's, 36M, Super Bowl party? My, 31F, husband, 36M, and I are supposed to be having a Super Bowl party tomorrow. We have been in a fight for weeks, and he invited people while we were fighting. I have no idea how many he invited, or the guest list. Most of our friends all stem from his friend group. I only invited one friend and her husband. I've asked him if he coordinated for people to bring shareables/contributions. Doesn't answer. I ask him how many and who is coming. Doesn't answer. I ask him what time people are coming. Doesn't answer. He's not the kind of person that plays host well, that always falls on me. He doesn't think about making sure people are fed and have drinks, etc. It's the night before and we have nothing in our fridge to suggest we have food to heat up or make. No beverages to get us through a party. How do I handle this situation? On one hand I'm tempted to let this party be a disaster, but on the other hand I'll be embarrassed if it is. Update. I had the courage to ask one of his best buddies if my husband told anyone to bring contributions and he said no. Second update, additional info, his friends all have wives that I am friends with. Half of them have kids. I don't know who's coming, but I can't bank on it just being a guy's party. Stories number 52. Whipped for asking my uncle to pay for my mom's hotel room. Throwaway, account, long-time lurker, first-time writer. I, F, 20, have an uncle, Gary, M, 37, who is my mother's, F, 42, biological brother. My uncle is a well-known music producer. He currently makes music for movies and is highly compensated for his work. There's another aunt in the family, technically a cousin, who was raised as part of our larger joint family. I'll call her Molly, 46/47. Molly used to be a small-time singer but later became a stay-at-home mom. Her husband recently divorced her, and she received half of his assets. She also has 2 children, one is a lawyer, and the other is a business student. I have a younger sister who is now 16. Gary is getting married in a month, on March 10th, which is also his anniversary. It's going to be a lavish beach wedding with several pre-wedding and post-wedding ceremonies, featuring performances by their musician friends. I mention this to emphasize that it's not a small event. Our grandmother has passed away, and our grandfather is estranged, so my mom is essentially the one giving him away. Earlier today, Gary called my mom and asked her to pay for both our room and my parents' room. He claimed he couldn't afford the cost, which is $350 per person per night. He said he could cover one room for the main wedding night, but we would have to pay for the other nights ourselves. My mom asked if he could at least cover the cost of my sister's and my room if we downgraded to a more affordable hotel. He said he still didn't have the budget for that. My mom, who doesn't make nearly as much money as he does, said she simply couldn't afford to spend that much on hotel accommodations for all of us. Since I'm a college student, I told her that my sister and I could stay at a cheaper hotel, and I would pay for it myself. Later, Aunt Molly's older son called me and asked which room we'd be staying in. I explained the situation to him, and he was shocked because Gary was fully covering both his and Molly's hotel rooms. I was surprised and frustrated. I didn't understand why Gary wouldn't pay for my mom's room as well. I want to call Uncle Gary and ask him why he's covering Molly's stay but not my mom's. However, my sister thinks it's not worth arguing over and that bringing it up would only add unnecessary stress to my mom. Stories number 53. Aita for not putting in more effort to dissuade the kid from eating very spicy food. My 21M, dad's business counterpart, Steve, is currently in our country on a trip. He also brought his daughter, Emma, 13. Initially, dad wanted my sister, 18, to take the kids sightseeing, but my sister shook her head and said her English isn't good enough, and that she wouldn't be able to hold an interesting conversation with her. So my dad and his counterpart gave me that task instead. I felt obligated to inform Steve our AQI is 154 so he can decide if he wants me to take the kid to see one of our temples outdoors, we have beautiful Buddhist temples, or to an indoors museum instead. He picked the latter, so I took her to a national museum. Later I took Emma to the mall where we had dinner at a nice restaurant. This is where the problem is. Our curry is very spicy. It's a staple of our cuisine. The restaurant has this sort of chart where 1 chili is mild and 5 chilies means extremely spicy. My mom always picks 5 chilies and then tells the waiter to tell the chef to go extra spicy, while the most I ever took is 3 chilies. And that was only in an ill-conceived attempt to impress a girl. Emma saw me pick 1 chili and asked how spicy can it be. Then she picked 5. I told her, that's a very bad idea. She insisted. I told her, I'm telling you. It's way too spicy. But she said she can take it. She spat out the first bite and got teary-eyed. I quickly ordered coconut water. It's how my mom taught me to soothe my mouth from the burning sensation. Later let her pick another dish and a dessert. She was quite mad and so was her dad when she told him. He said that as an adult I shouldn't have let her do something so foolish. Stories number 54. I took the day off and it was the one day I should have gone to work. I teach 6th grade. Sometimes they drive me crazy and they take advantage of me because I'm considered a nice teacher. They call me bro and ask why I dress like I'm homeless because I wear cardigans. But these kids are very empathic too. They are good kids. I haven't taken a personal day off since October, so I took today off and my school got some random sub. I found out that the school counselor pulled one of my kids out of class to tell him that his dad passed away. And he was a single dad. Some car accident. How do I know this? The school counselor said my student asked if he could call me. This kid lost his parent and the person he wanted to talk to was me. They tried calling me but my phone was on silent all day. I have no way of contacting him because I just have the phone number of his dad who is dead. No one is at his house. I hate thinking that this kid feels like I don't care and that's why I didn't reach out. Stories number 55. Abusive ex refused to move out so I did it for her in the most inconvenient way possible. I was inspired to share this after reading the top post today. I had broken up with my ex about a year prior to this event but she wouldn't move out, one excuse after another for a solid year until one day amidst yet another argument she finally admitted her plan was to stay indefinitely, and threatened to claim domestic abuse if I did anything about it. That weekend she decided to go out for one of her weekend vacations with a girlfriend, so I took advantage of the 48 hours I had and got to work reserving a storage unit and rented a moving truck. I worked around the clock loading that truck multiple times, only sleeping a few hours that entire weekend. She had hoarding tendencies that I had long turned a blind eye to, had to pick my battles, and it had gotten pretty far out of control. Not only did I make dozens of trips but the storage unit itself was almost too small for it all. It was truly amazing how much crap she had managed to pack floor to ceiling in multiple rooms, closets, and the garage despite living in the same house together for so long. I made sure her laptop was the very first thing in the storage unit all the way in the back corner, followed by all of her clothes, so many fucking clothes, then furniture, then all the meaningless hoarded junk. By the time I was done, that storage unit was packed floor to ceiling to the point I had to really Tetris the last couple of loads in there just to get the door shut. She was right at the end of a semester of school and not only needed the laptop first thing the next week, she was also planning on leaving for a cross-state road trip to visit family, and everything she needed for that was at the very back. From what I heard, it took her and a friend the better part of the week to find that laptop and repack the storage unit. She missed some important deadlines at school and delayed her family trip by a whole week, which messed up other plans and wasted a few PTO days at work to boot. The best part came months later. You see, when she first came back from that little weekend vacation, I had asked her to sign a receipt to receive the key to the storage unit. She immediately refused, threw a fit, tried to steal my dog, failed, tried breaking into my house while I was gone, then came back hours later with about 6 cops in her wake. To this day I don't know what lies she told them to get that entourage, but after I explained my side of the story they realized it was just a civil matter and quickly left. The receipt I asked her to sign was simple enough in that I offered to pay for the storage unit for 6 months if she signed it that day, but since she didn't, I removed my card from the account and put the unit in her name. Only problem was, the card she then put on file with them was an authorized user card linked to my account, which I promptly cancelled, so then she missed enough payments on the storage unit that they locked her out and she was never able to get the rest of her stuff before they presumably auctioned it all off. Stories number 56. Aita for telling my dad's relatives I never met his son and we don't have a relationship. My dad was widowed and had a 17-year-old son when he and my mom met. His son was 20 before I was born and I never met him. My dad and him see each other occasionally and they talk on the phone pretty often, but he isn't interested in coming to meet me. I never had any contact with him, no phone calls or birthday cards or following each other on social media, although I tried that last one and he ignored it. I know that's kind of weird, and for the most part one tell people I'm an only child because it beats getting questions, and really I feel like one even if biologically I do have a half-brother. I'm 17 now and still haven't met him. Some of my dad's relatives came from overseas for a visit. I think one was his aunt, 2 were cousins or something, and we had a family reunion kind of thing. They asked aloud where my dad's son was and they were surprised he didn't come and how they had wanted to meet his kids. They were asking me about our relationship and how we manage with a 20-year gap. I told them we didn't manage it because I never met the dude before. I said he talks to dad but has nothing to do with me or my mom. The relatives were like, WTF, do you mean you never met him and he's your brother? I said that's just how it is. He's a stranger to me and will likely always be one. When we left the party my dad asked me why I said all that and I told him they asked questions and I wasn't going to lie and pretend I know the dude. My dad said that's not the kind of thing I need to broadcast and I know it sounds bad. I told him I know it sounds weird but that's our reality. My dad said it still doesn't need to be something I talk about like I did. I told him they would have realized eventually or found out eventually, so why not just put it out there. My dad told me it just isn't how most families would work and everyone knows that, and how I'm old enough to be more tactful about stuff. Aita.